Oh, let me out! Let me out!
Growl!
We gotta do a podcast.
Pete Zergling, I know you're in there.
Help!
Welcome back to episode 13 of The Bench, powered by Wowhead, and we have Growl in prison, and Squishy. Well, he's not in prison, but he does have a clothes hanger on his door.
I do.
I don't know what that's doing there. All right, so welcome back. How's everybody doing?
Growl, actually.
Tired. I've been playing so much lately. I've been doing MDI, I've been doing live keys, I've been doing others. I've not been doing YouTube, but I'm like exhausted, but in like a good way. Usually this isn't like this. Like usually this is the part of the expansion where you like chill or whatever, but I hate to say it, but I've been gaming and I've been enjoying.
Are you getting back on the YouTube grind soon? I've still been on my medium-term YouTube grind, not the daily uploads, but like the 3 times a week uploads.
Nope. I don't know what it is. I just don't like. For me, I guess I've been playing a lot and streaming a lot, and anytime that I'm not doing that, I just want to be detached from WoW and like what little time I don't spend. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to stream so much and then play so much and then be like, all right, time to log off and work on WoW again. Like, I don't know. It just. Also, people are guilty for watching my stream and my stream doing well too, because I'm like, well, stream's doing well. Like, who cares? You know, not really worried. I don't know. I've just haven't really been. I don't know. YouTube is just, it's too much like thinking and preparing. I just want to like just game, you know?
Yeah. Squishy, how have you been, buddy? How's Wowhead and all the other things that you're doing?
In Queen Anne prison. This place fucking hard, man.
It's hard?
Different type of prison, yeah. Oh.
I saw Dratnus' guild kill it the other day.
Yeah. Dratnus' guild fucking owned, along with a lot of other guilds. I mean, I think the first set of nerfs helped them a lot. But for new guilds, the fight feels like Tindril 2.0, requiring root breaks and the mechanics coming at you at like 1,000 miles an hour. So it's just a lot still. I expect this to be like a 300 pull boss still. It's pretty insane.
How many pull bosses is Silken Court?
I think I saw a tweet that it was like 70.
Yeah, I've seen some guilds kill it in 70. I think that Blur killed it in like 65 or something like that.
Bro, we have 55 pulls in our first day and we didn't even make it out of P1.
How much prep did you guys do?
By you guys, do you mean our raid leaders or you mean the people in the raid?
Both.
Because our raid leaders a lot, and they have a giant spreadsheet and all these markers and where everyone's supposed to stand, and everyone else in the raid, none. So, and they didn't even look at it.
So this was Blur. Blur killed it in 118. I saw some guild, I think it might have been like Telegon and Zyronic's guild Velocity that killed it in like 75.
Yeah, they're insane. This is a 200 pull boss.
Okay. How's all right, let's take a break and talk about some MDI stuff. You're in MDI prison? Is that what's going on? I thought it was a joke whenever you first said that you were doing the MDI, especially with the people that are on your team. I thought it was just like a joke.
So Drogo messaged me and he basically said, we're doing a for fun MDI with Dorky. And I basically was like, yeah, sure, bud. Like, you get Dorky to do MDI, I'll do MDI, like, sure. And then he just comes back with, all right, here's our MDI team. We have me, you, Dorky, Billy, and then I don't remember who the 5th was supposed to be. And I don't even think that any of them wanted to play, but I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, it might be fun. We'll stream it. And then the day before the signups end, I'm like, by the way, we still don't have a 4th because that person bailed. Like, what are we doing? And then Drogo's just like, I got now. And I'm like,
literally how? Actually, how?
And so now it just shows up, and I guess we're just a team now. And so it's actually been quite interesting. I feel like the fact that we're definitely playing a decent amount, but we're not playing like that much, like a full schedule or whatever. And it's been kind of cool. I think people have really, really enjoyed like seeing the innards of like, you know, doing a pull a bunch of times and like looking at it and seeing it's impossible, and then like all the little tweaks to make it work and like the class changes. And I'm not really that big into like the theory crafty planning stuff. Like, I just like to game and figure it out. But I think a lot of WoW people do like the theory crafty stuff and planning, and I think people have really enjoyed it. So an interesting thing too has been a lot of YouTube people actually. Like, my YouTube stream, like whenever we've been streaming, that has been like super popping off to the point where it's like 600 or 700 viewers. So I feel like it was interesting to me to kind of think about that, about why that audience enjoys the MDI stuff more, or why it's more interesting, or maybe it's just the stream growing. I don't know, but yeah, it's been different. Now is just like such a monster at MDI and stuff. Like he's just so oh yeah, end of an era. Everyone's been making fun of him about playing, by the way, because of this.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not making fun of him. Like the way that Echo and that team played was very different than the way that you guys are playing right now, and so it makes sense that he could still participate in the MDI and then not want to participate like as like hardcore as he was in the past. And also, I think that the not being able to stream thing for multiple like months probably paid a big toll on him. I was just shocked to see him do the MDI again so quickly because it seemed like he wasn't having fun, at least how he was talking about it on stream. It seemed like he wasn't having fun with it for a while. And so it was kind of funny to see him jump back in so fast.
Dude, I feel like that's everyone that does the MDI.
Yeah,
Well,
that is very, very common.
What, they just
I
hate
keep
it?
hearing I'm just never gonna do the MDI again. And then like a season, 2 seasons later, they forget how bad it was and stuff like that. Then they get back into it. It always seems to happen, and I think it's hilarious. But like, do what makes you happy.
Dude,
If
literally,
you're having fun, do it.
Yoda about 3 times in expansion is going to say, in some various capacity, I'm no longer competing in WoW esports. I'm quitting the game. I'm no longer doing Mythic Plus. And we all know that's bullshit. And then he shows back up and competes in like the TGP or the MDI randomly once or twice in expansion. He'll continue to play the game and he'll show back up and do more Mythic Plus. And there's nothing stopping him. It's like, it's all just a lie.
Yeah, I also think a lot of people don't fully realize how like weird MDI is compared to a tournament for any other game. You know, like for instance, let's say you're playing Counter-Strike and you're like, oh, our team's not going to play any more tournaments, and then like you just show up to a tournament. It's sort of like, what are you doing? You know, but in MDI, like there's such a massive difference between playing a full schedule 12 hours a day versus not doing that, and it's like what we're doing. While it's possible that we beat people, I guess, like if they mess up, like we're literally just like doing it for fun and messing around. And it really is, when he said he was done, like, it's really not the same thing as what they were doing in the past. But yeah, that guy, he's just very, very quick. Like one thing that I think a lot of people didn't realize is how hard learning and adapting to pulls and like piecing these routes together are, and how good all the Echo players are. And just like quickly being like, okay, this is what's wrong, this is what we need to do, and adjusting. And it's been really, really crazy playing with now in real time and like seeing that of just like just so quickly he can just be like, this is not going to work, or this is going to work, or we need to do it like this. And it's like, I feel like one of the hardest things for me is just not knowing what's right. Like let's say you go into a dungeon, you do a pull or a boss and you die, and it's like, if I do that 5 more times, could I figure it out the 5th time? Like, are we going the wrong direction? Like, is this wrong? Is it right? Like, that just such, like, whenever you look at the difference between, like, a world first player and not world first player, like, it's so much different for someone like me or any other guild, really. Like, even Dranos' guild, which is a super good guild, right? We're essentially video guilds. We look at what they do and we just copy everything they do. And we might change some stuff or adapt some stuff. But, like, these are guys that they're coming up with a strategy and they have no idea even if it could work, or, they could be spending hundreds of pulls on something that's not even viable. And it's like, just that quick sort of like adapting and changing and stuff has been really cool for me. So it's been a lot of work. It's been tough because we've been trying to make our schedules work, and I've been waking up really, really early, which, as a gamer and a streamer is really tough for me to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning. But I don't know, it's been fun. We've been making it work.
You guys got 8th place. I mean, that's not bad. How much are you guys playing realistically?
I would say we've been playing like, I don't know, maybe let's say an average like 3 to 4 hours a day for while it's, and we also didn't practice at all before the time trials got posted. Like we basically, like there was 2 full weeks that that the servers were up where you could practice where we didn't play. And then basically like on average 3 hours a day, maybe. And just like, I would say both of our times are Necrotic Wake. I'm pretty dang proud of this, by the way. Everyone was playing Resto Druid, and both me and Now were sort of like, I don't really feel this Resto Druid. Like, this doesn't seem right. And so we just played Priest, and we kept playing Priest. And all the best times were the Resto Druid, but we put up a Priest time. And then, like, randomly after we put up our time and moved on, not that our time was that good, but, like, we could have optimized it a lot. Both the top teams showed up with Priest and put up a top time. And I'm like, okay, that actually makes me feel a lot better, because I think we were on the right track with that. And so I think we probably could have gotten our time with our route and our players down to about 11 minutes, let's say, on Wake. And then in City, I don't know, City's so tough. I mean, City, we could have shaved another minute and a half, I think, off of our time too. I think we were like low 15-ish, maybe.
Oh yeah, 20. Yeah.
Yeah, 15, 20. Yeah, City's so tough because you have like this whole RP scenario where it's like you're running around opening these guys, and the way the Eyes of the
12,
Queen
18.
work is random on TR. So you actually have to
Oh.
manually go find them all every single attempt. So for sure, the best times are a specific setup of like this one's here, this one's here, this one's here, because there's so much dependent on that, right? For instance, the big beetle guy that walks around that you never ever pull in that area.
Yeah.
Well, you pull that guy because you can do him during RP, but he's like his patrol is so ridiculous, and so like there's so much stuff that lines up, and it's so weird. And yeah, I don't know. That dungeon was more reasonable for Druid, and basically everyone was running like a very similar comp.
I wonder if they were doing something in that area since they
I mean,
got.
how could you? I mean, surely everybody is doing some weird stuff, right? So what we came up with basically was we did the very first guy so we could enter the city, and then while we killed the first queen, me and the rogue sort of split off and grabbed two of them, and then we all met at the third one, and we would do one eye, then all three eyes, and then we would go boss.
So
and interesting to note, by the way, is if you do all three of the eyes at once, one of the casters actually doesn't spawn in one of the packs. And so you actually lose count if you do all the eyes at once by a little bit.
I know this was a thing during beta. You could snap the Eyes of the Queen like to the tank. Did you guys test with that at all?
Yeah, well, so that's another weird thing about the positioning, right? So a lot of the way snap works is either the mob is way too far away from the target that is threat on, or it can't path, right? And so let's say you meet up at a spot, but you happen to get a bad spawn where the pack that you needs to snap is close, and then the pack that you're trying to snap to is also close, and the pack is too close and you can't snap it. So we would have to, like, if we got that pattern, we'd have to run away far away from the pack we're trying to snap to get it to snap. And it's like, yeah, we were doing some snap stuff, but yeah, there was some nonsense going on in that dungeon for sure. I can't wait to see once we get to MDI cups or whatever what teams cook up, because someone's doing some ridiculous stuff.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about key level?
I think all of us expected it around there, right? Because there's no way they're not putting on the affixes, right? They're definitely putting on the affixes. I think it seemed okay for time trials, but I think I wouldn't be surprised maybe if they just do like 10s and then like 11s and cups. I also suggested that, well, not really suggested, but I think they might do 12s and then just put the affixes on anyway. Like not put Zalateth's whatever on there and then just put the affixes and not, you know what I mean? I think like that the key level was fine. Like Necrotic Wake, we basically did like pretty much every area was like pull as many mobs as possible and then blast it down, which is I think what people want to see in MDI. But the pulls were challenging. Like it wasn't like you just face roll the pulls. Like they were hard to heal.
I think the interesting thing is how there's so many. Is this the like biggest amount of class changes between MDI time trials and the cup itself?
Oh, there was in between.
They did this
TGP,
in Dragonflight too, didn't they?
Well, in between the TGP and Dragonflight, there was Aug Evoker got released.
Okay, no, that might be a bigger one. Okay, fair enough.
I think that TGP patch was wild. I think that was probably bigger. This one will probably be pretty large, the 1105 anniversary stuff. Yeah.
I mean, like,
it's a little ridiculous, but at the same time, I think MDI is such a small percentage of people, and if anything, like people want to see new stuff in MDI anyways. So I don't know. I think it's totally fine. You know, let the changes roll and let the competitors will figure stuff out. I don't think the competitive integrity of MDI justifies, holding back patches or anything.
Squishy, what'd you think about this tweet? 20 pulls into thick silken cord, and this is the least fun I've ever had playing a video game in my entire life.
But before I say anything, I think Growl should get an opportunity to say his thoughts on this and defend himself.
Okay.
All right, so I was slightly under attack here in the comments by a lot of Liquid members. I just want to say that I think it's possible that Liquid is friends with the person that made this boss, because they kind of came out in full force defending this boss randomly, which was like, I was a little surprised. I will say that, to be fair, I didn't say anything about the design of the boss. I said it's not fun. Right. And one of the things that I think everybody hates about raiding is when you're doing a boss and you can't progress because one person messes up and blows up the whole raid. Like I remember that issue with Sepulcher and many other hard raids. I'm all for like really, really challenging hard bosses, but it's really not fun for me when it's like not my challenge and I'm just sitting there while I wait for everyone to figure out for how many pulls. Another thing that I really hate about this boss is it really handcuffs and scripts your movement. In so many classes in this game, you play them because they're really, really fun movement. Like, I'm not going to name any names, but the one demon hunter in our raid is constantly dashing around, blowing up everybody, right? And so, but the thing is, the bro's a demon hunter. Like he logged into World of Warcraft and he picked a demon hunter and he wants to fly around and be a demon, right? Like, why does he have to sit there and walk around or play? Yeah, right. Why does this guy have to play, like no mover demon hunter or just like grief his damage and be 14th in the raid because he can't dash around and play the game? Like, it's not. I'm gonna make fun of this guy, but at the same time, like, man, it feels so bad, right? Like, I can understand if there's like, okay, this is a really tough moment where we have to be careful. But it's just constantly orbs everywhere. You have to be worried about where everyone's standing, and it's like, I don't know. I think I was just not having fun, and I will continue to not have fun because I progressed this boss today. I will also say, in my defense to the Liquid players, bros, literally, we're not even talking about the same boss. Like, they're literally in a raid of 20 people who are all like insane gamers who are figuring everything out. They're pre-planning stuff. And also everyone in that raid is happy to be there and wants to, like, they're all there to solve the boss and beat the boss and work together and accomplish the objectives, right? Like every other guild in the world, right? We have people in our raid that don't want to be there. We have some guy who re-rolled on a class that he shouldn't be on. We have the one guy that's only there for loot. We have the one guy that, like, this is not how every other guild in the game works. And like the fact, and here's the thing, right? I'm just going to keep defending myself because I need to say all these things. Okay. So there's really smart commenters in the chats that say things such as like, oh, why don't you just quit? Why do you even mythic raid, right? I've enjoyed every single one of these bosses. I'm on the podcast saying this was a really fun raid, and I knew this was going to happen when I got to one of these bosses after saying it, but I enjoy Mythic Raid. But here's the problem, right? I can't quit. Like, what am I supposed to do? Join a guild and do the first 6 bosses and be like, all right, I'm done, guys. I'm not in for the hard bosses. Like, that's not how guilds work. Like, if it was somehow reasonable to, like, pug Mythic Raid and there was no lockouts and all this stuff, like, maybe I would do the first X number of bosses in a pug and, like, not worry about it. But I have to be in a guild because of the way Mythic lockouts work if I want, like, good gear consistently. And I don't know. It just, I don't know. This boss... I'm not going to say the boss is designed poorly because I'm sure eventually I might like it, but it's just not fun. Like, I don't know. I just need a bottle of wine to raid every single day. Like, I can't show up to raid without a bottle of wine while I'm doing this boss.
I think this boss specifically, I think there's a group that loves it and there's a group that hates it. If you love the scripted dance encounters, there are, a handful of them, especially Final Fantasy players, I think love this type of encounter. Because you do the same thing over and over again, very limited RNG, you'll love it. If you hate these types of encounters where you do the same thing every time, there's very little reaction to it, then you're probably going to hate this encounter. And, I think it's just personal preference. I think there's 2 types of encounters that people hate more generally than scripted encounters. One is heavy weak aura bosses. I think people hate that even more because you spend more time trying to troubleshoot a weak aura than actually playing the boss. And the second one is class stacking bosses or class composition requirements. That's the double blood DK bosses, or, you need a certain amount of 2 Ellie shamans for Unat, stuff like that. I think people hate those bosses more. But I personally like Silken.
Can I bring a third type of fight up to the table here? Cringe ad fight is how I would describe this boss. It is go
on.
There's a lot of ad bosses that just summon the ads. Where do these ads come from? I don't really know. They just appear out of the sky in some cases, and then you just have to defeat them because of what reason? Because Broodkeeper decided that they appeared out of the air. They actually didn't spawn from the eggs, by the way. They just flew in on parachutes, and they continuously spawn, similar to Stone Legion generals. General Zakal is just knocking them out of their General Raven, whatever. He's knocking them out of the air, and I think Blizzard keeps making those bosses, and I think those suck more. But that's my personal thoughts on it.
Yeah. I think this raid overall has just a lot of polarizing fights, depending on how you and your guild feel about them. For guilds that don't have 2 times blood decays, Brood Twister's absolute hell to deal with. I think most.
So you think that boss sucks? Do you think that's the worst boss in the raid?
For me, worst is very quantifiable. I would say, yeah, I think Brute Twister's the worst boss.
Okay.
No, not in the worst. Maybe not in the raid of the last 4. Because I think that's
okay. So of the bosses that matter,
yes.
You think
I think
Roshanon's
Kai'Bezir-
worse?
Probably. I don't. I've pegged that boss as like doesn't do anything for like ever since it was introduced.
The boss is sick.
I will say, first of all, part 2 of the Silken Court rant is coming.
Okay.
I will say that as a healer, I enjoyed Brute Twister though. Brute Twister was a fun healer fight. So I know a lot of people didn't like that fight, but I actually did, which is why I'm making fun of you.
Fair enough.
Anyway, okay, so part 2. This is why this boss sucks, bro. So okay, there's these ads, right? And the ads fixate on random people, and I'm a poor holy priest, okay? I'm getting fixated by this ad, and my tank is at his mental limit, not blowing up the raid, right? Like, having to position the boss and aim the things, he is at his mental limit. So I just stopped asking him to grip the ad. I just fight the boss now with a scarab hitting me for the entire pull because he just can't even. And the funny thing is, I'm standing next to a warlock, right? Because you have a scripted position for 10 minutes straight in the entire fight. And sometimes the ad goes on the warlock, and it's so funny. Just okay, grip. Hey, grip. There's an ad on me. There's an ad on me, and I'm just, you know. And then of course the tank moves over to grip it, blows up because the demon hunter dashes through the boss, and it's just like there's just. I don't know what it is about trying to design encounters for tanks, and when you said the required 2 blood decay thing, that crossed my mind as well. Another thing about this boss, and this just might be a Growl's Guild specific thing, but there's so many times where people just blow up, and my guild already has a problem with admitting that they made a mistake. You know, a lot of people do, right? They worry about getting flamed. They get worried about the raid leader thinking they're bad. My guild doesn't even know if they've made mistakes. There's been many pulls where people blow up, and then some guy's like, nope, wasn't me. Wasn't me. Two people blew each other up. I wasn't moving. Well, I wasn't moving either. Or people that are like, I walked into 1 orb and there was 4 orbs. Because remember, you used to, the way the fight works is you have to pick up orbs dropped by the other team without touching that team. And you can pick up to, you used to be able to pick up 1 or 2 orbs, and if you pick up 3, you blow up. They've nerfed the boss so that you can pick up 3 orbs, but if you pick up 4, you blow up. There's been so many times where someone says, I only picked up 1 orb and I blew up. They either they have no idea what's going on and they somehow walked over 4 orbs and blew up, or somehow 4 people were stacked on top of each other and dropped 4 orbs in one location, and we're literally just wiping. And my guild is convinced, by the way, that the boss is bugged. They're just my guild says the boss is bugged. They just say the logs are broken. There's I just walked over 1 orb and it killed me. There are people who can't even get into the circle at the beginning and they blow up. Bro, people blow up instantaneously on pull because they didn't get into the circle at the beginning, and they go, no, I was in the circle. I was there. Of course, they blink in the last second and then blow up because they didn't get the. And so, on top of bosses where one person messing up wipes the whole raid and blows them up, I also hate bosses where it isn't very, very clear what you did wrong or what you could have done better. And I think that, like, needing weak auras to be like, 1 orb, 2 orb, 3 orbs, and like orbs can be stacked on top of each other and like all this stuff. Like, I get it, right? It's fun if you're some omega tryhard and you're like being scripted and you're bought with whatever people think is fun. But when you're in, for 99.9% of the people who are in guilds, like, that's the problem with mythic raiding. And there's 20 people in the raid, and very rarely are all 20 people on the same page with really, really difficult encounters like this. And it's like, I feel like if the encounter is difficult, it should be like a really, really difficult damage check or like personal responsibility. But to just like have this group coordination blow up the whole raid stuff is like, I don't know. And I'm just getting madder and madder as I'm talking about it because I have raid in 3 hours. So I'm gonna stop now and try and cool down from it.
I raided with Squishy.
The humble clip. I didn't even realize this was the humble clip.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the humble clip in a second. I raided with Squishy for 3 years, and any time that somebody wouldn't recognize that they wiped your raid, Growl, you're gonna love this. Squishy would go disappointed dad mode and go, "Don't make me open up the logs right now. I will call you out if you don't tell me right now who wiped us and what happened." And then he would then go, he'd be like, "All right, I'm opening up the logs." He would give you like 3 strikes. He'd be like, "Don't make me open the logs." He'd be like, "All right, I'm opening up the logs now." And then he's like, "All right, guys, I'm really gonna have to open up these logs and figure out who wiped us here." And then he goes, "Tuttles, what did you blah 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 blah?" And he like scold you in front of the raid and be like, "Why did you wipe us? Blah blah blah. Do you not know how this mechanic works?" And it's just like, and the funniest part of this entire situation is if you didn't know how the mechanic worked and say you didn't wipe the raid, you sure as hell figured it out whenever Squishy is scolding this other person in front of the entire raid about wiping the raid.
Where do I apply?
Mightguild.com?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay,
but
let's talk about this humble clip. What is going on
Massive.
here?
Dude, I don't know why people are so opinionated on this boss. This is another massive controversy. First of all, Nerf, notorious troll and shit stirrer, by the way. Unbelievable, because I know Nerf doesn't care about this at all, by the way. There's so many people that are like really serious about Guild Rank, but I know Nerf, he's 100% doing this just to stir shit and troll. And I mean, like, congrats. Hats off to him. He completely accomplished his objective here. So, for the context of this clip, I don't remember when exactly this happened. It feels like it's been a while.
It was Monday. It was last Monday.
Oh, okay. So it was
It
right
was
after we
Webpool
recorded
Day.
the last
Yeah,
pod. I was worried
it was
we talked
Webpool
about
Day.
it. But so basically, there was a bug that we talked about, and essentially you could use an item to bug bosses. And this boss was easy to bug, and there were rumors that people used it to kill this boss. And so they did some last second hot fixing to this boss, right? And so what happened was Humble, on the come up guild, they've been, guild ranks every single tier, recently acquired top player TM Sean into their guild. They were pulling this boss. They have over 200 pulls on the boss. You can see really close to killing it, right? 10%. They were on the very last part of the fight. And then the boss stopped.
It's not doing mechanics.
The boss gets the 40% and it stops. And everyone basically just was like, what do we do? And so many people essentially said that as a guild, they should have stopped pulling the boss, walked away, and then let it reset and not killed it like this. First of all, you're insane.
You kill that boss.
You're insane. You 100% kill that boss. Number one, this is said by Blizzard, and this is it has what's the word? There's like stuff in the past that they've done where they said that you can do this. Precedence. There you go. There is precedence that this is what you should do and you should kill the boss, right? Number one. Number two, as a guild, if you have a clean ass pull with 2 battle reses going into the last phase of a boss that you're progging that you know you can kill and it bugs, you feel robbed. You're like, what the heck? Like, I'm not giving up this pull. Screw you. Like, we're owning right now. We're not, this was going into the last intermission of the fight. Like, anybody who's rated at this level knows that if that happened, you'd be like, screw you, I'm killing this boss. And it's so funny to see a lot of people like up in arms or mad that they should have done this, that they should have quit. Another thing is that people are saying that they bugged the boss on purpose. And so the way that it worked, Blizzard actually revealed the way that it worked. So the boss, in the intermission, it burrows and then it goes to the center of the room and it starts this cast or whatever. And the way it happened was if you have the boss perfectly pixel positioned in the middle of the room where it can't burrow to the middle of the room because it's already there, it just bugs out because it doesn't know what to do. And they had no idea they had no idea that was the case. And I went back, right? Because I would love to start drama too, right? I would love to post proof that they were trying to bug the boss because I would get so many likes on Twitter. So I went back on all the polls. They were clearly not trying to do that. I was watching the tank. He was clearly not trying to put it in the middle of the room in any of the other polls. I was watching him. He was just like moving around randomly. He just happened to be in that exact spot on that exact poll. And it wasn't like he was, trying to do that all night because he knew that was a thing and they finally got it and killed it. They were genuinely surprised. But by far the funniest part about this is the guy who made this Reddit thread that got a bunch of upvotes goes into Dorky's stream to start shit. And he basically goes into Dorky's like, oh, what do you think about your guild? What is it? Exploiting the boss or whatever. And Dorky basically responds with, screw that, I hate raid. I'm happy to cheat the boss. I'd cheat every boss if I could. And the guy clips it and puts it in the Reddit thread as like proof that Humble was cheating. On top of that, all right, sorry, there's some opinionated topics. There was a rumor that they deleted the VODs, right? Because everyone's saying they're guilty, they deleted the VODs. They never deleted the VODs. The VODs were always there. Where do you think that clip just came from? Unless they were like maybe like randomly hidden or something. I went and checked. J-Funk had VODs. Dorky wasn't even streaming. I don't know if they're saying that because Dorky didn't have VODs, but everyone, like, we just saw the clip. Like, they have VODs. They always have private logged because raiders are monkeys, and if you don't private log, they just feed.
That's real, yeah.
Right? So they always private logged. They never deleted their VODs. So, and look, I would love to start drama and flame my old guild. They kicked me or benched me or whatever, but they are 100% innocent. And if you don't think so, you're stupid.
Goddamn. Growl, you excited to go on the boss tonight?
No.
No, what do you mean, man? Have you listened to him?
We got a bottle of wine though. We're ready. We didn't stream today so that I can watch. I started rewatching Better Call Saul. I've watched that show through. It's like the greatest show ever. So I started rewatching that. I got a bottle of wine. I'm just gonna mute my Discord, and it's gonna be a fun night of Prague.
Hell yeah. Okay, the thing with these bosses is I feel like they almost all have one too many mechanics that turns the boss from something amazing to something crap. Like, Silken Court did not need those scarabs. I'm sorry. Those scarabs are probably the most useless mechanic on that fight. Like, 5 people deal with them, and they have 40 million health or something. They will die. You don't even need to focus them. All you need to do is control them for 20 seconds. And if you don't control them, you just have your priest healer yelling at you for a bit. Like, I don't know. Bridge Twister, there's those swirlies. Those things are horrid.
It seems like it was just a bit much too, right? Like, it seems like they probably, any normal human sort of like looked at that and been like, okay, this is fine. But then they were kind of like, oh, it's a mythic fight. We got to crank it up to 11. And they just like put way too many swirlies and way too, you know what I mean? I think they just go over the top a little bit sometimes. Like,
it's the same with like Farak. Farak had swirlies too that I think were kind of overkill. Razagath had swirlies during the pushback, which I think were completely overkill.
I forgot about that. Oh my god!
Like, sometimes you just get it's not like you can move or look where you're going during the push. You just get stunned and you die. Like,
okay. Side note, dude, can we re-implement the technology where you can actually make bosses, like you can see through the bosses again, like we did for Razagath? Like, what in the world? Why can't we just have that technology for every boss? We deleted the dust, but please bring it back.
Man, I will say, I think that Blizzard has been stepping up their visibility of mechanics most of the time. I think they've done a good job, but it is very funny that they added an item that lets you help see on big bosses, and then they just nerfed it so you can't. They're like, nope, that wing's supposed to be there. You don't get to know if there's a swirly there or not.
Side note,
yeah.
Can they give like every mob in Mythic Plus like 3 extra yards of hitbox radius? So that my melee stopped getting hit?
No, actually, this expansion, they removed all the extra melee range.
I know, dude, just give all the mobs 3 yards, please. Just 3 more yards on every single hitbox. I'm begging.
Oh, playing melee.
All right, anyways. All right, let's talk about 11.0.5. So, oh gosh, I clicked on the wrong thing.
What?
We went to...
Do you guys remember when this patch was announced? And it was like, what was it, like 2 weeks after the expansion came out or something? It was like the heroic raid release or something, and they announced this patch. It's so weird. It was like so long ago that they did this and they had all these changes, but everyone's pretty hyped. We're finally here. Like, there's a massive list of changes. I don't even know where to start.
I think by far the most anticipated and asked question is related to class tuning on 11.0.5, and Squishy made this pretty comprehensive post talking about how all of the specs are going to be doing. Break this down for us, Squishy. What do you think are the big winners and losers here?
So the big winners, definitely specs that... are definitely specs that needed it the most. Arcane Mage.
Oh, yeah.
These guys really needed it. Were really suffering. Yeah, they were really suffering. Weren't in any like Mythic Plus groups. No, they were in every Mythic Plus group. I don't know why Frosty K is getting an 8% buff. But they got their hero talents reworked essentially, and it is amounting to an 8% buff. It is insane. Arcane Mage also notably very good in raid. Getting a almost 12% buff single target. So Yeah, some huge buffs for these two specs that I don't think needed it, but they're getting it just due to talent reworks. The talents need to be brought in line, but I think it's a little too late for that. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have 4 specs taking a nerf. You have Fire Mage. That's fine. They can play Arcane.
Dude,
Paladin.
Fire Mage is dead. Like, log off.
Fire Mage is interesting because Preheat was telling me, 6.5% single target. AoE is the same, but you're losing single target for that. So the more AoE you want, the less single target you'll do, like on tyrannical bosses and stuff, which makes that spec pretty dead for Mythic Plus, I think.
Yeah.
That's like a lot of people get confused a little bit understanding why specs are good or what makes specs good, and being able to do really, really good single target or priority damage while cleaving and doing big AoE is like that's what defines a good class in Mythic Plus, right? So when you see a change like that, that's like, oh no.
Yeah,
I would actually be looking to rework a lot of classes to stop doing that. By the way, I think that Fire Mage having to press Flame Strike, for example, is like healthy. Like, there's so many specs that aren't pressing their AoE button right now, and I think that that's absurd.
Yeah, well,
I will say though, I mean it's interesting though because I think I've noticed that too, specifically with hero talents. Like a lot of hero talent trees sort of give you the ability to do that, right? Like do a lot of AoE while you're doing a single target. And to be fair, it's been okay kind of for M+, right? Because like it's kind of nice to just like have every class be able to do AoE and single target. And like I'm not saying every class, like there's definitely problematic classes, but
so I've just marked the first pull of Arakara here, and I think that this is why it's a problem. It's because they've actually changed Mythic Plus pulls to where you do this massive pull. It's probably 30 some odd mobs for the first pull of Arakara, and this guy right here is the only one that even matters. Like, none of the rest of these mobs even matter. Like, they'll just die to passive cleave, and this is the only guy that matters. And that's how it is for every single dungeon, right? Where priority damage is the only form of damage that realistically matters for Mythic Plus, and mass AoE is mostly dead.
Yeah, I mean, Arcane is getting, I'm pretty sure, more on AoE.
It's about the same. I mean, they do their AoE rotation, or they do the single target rotation on AoE. They're slightly target capped, so it depends on the target count.
But yeah, those are the big winners. Continuing the losers, Ret taking a 3% nerf because they did talent reworks. They aura buffed them by 6%, and it's still not enough because it's like a 10% nerf overall. H-Pal taking a small shot again for some reason. And our favorite Boomkin, who was definitely struggling already, is taking another nerf. Tettles, you want to talk about that?
Whatever. Like, it's one of those things. It's like the bigger thing for me is I'm just kind of sad that we got a rework and we aren't actually using any of the new talents. Like, what the fuck is going on with that?
Yeah, I'll say with the Paladin stuff, I think it's headed in the right direction. I know people don't like getting nerfed, but essentially Paladin talents, like each individual node, specifically in the class tree, not even in the spec trees, were just so good. Like they would just give you so much power. And so one of the things that they did was they sort of removed a lot of those nodes and replaced them with crappy nodes. And so people are like, hey, you're taking my good nodes away and giving me bad nodes. But I think having like flavorful, situational, unique nodes in your class tree and not like forcing you to pick specific nodes just to do damage or do healing is on the right track. They just need to, buff buff the classes accordingly so that they're not actually losing power, Like I think, things like, being able to get 2 charges of Divine Steed or having a ranged kick or, having really powerful Diva or like little things like that I think are cool and what should be in the class tree. And Paladin just had way too many just like, 10% damage to this ability, 20% healing to this ability nodes in their tree. And I don't really think those are like, I think the Druid tree is another one that's guilty of that, where you have like these nodes that are just so insanely good that you have to get to. And it's like, you end up taking like all this situational stuff that you don't even want just to get to this node for 10% damage. And it's just like, I think they're on the right track with it, but it needs to be cooked a little bit. To be fair, though, Paladins, they complain way too much. Paladin is so good right now. Like, I think H-Pal and Raid and M+, like, I'm sorry, that class is good.
Dude, I was keen with Ellesmere on H-Pal today. And that spec is actually pretty solid. Like, okay, if I'm pugging 10 times out of 10, am I bringing an equally, like, comparable Restoration Shaman? Like, Resto Shaman is just so easy to play with by comparison. But Holy Paladin's actually not bad. And if somebody's, like, 30 or 40 points ahead on a Holy Paladin, I would probably invite them over, like, a Resto Shaman.
Paladin's
Yeah,
just
I mean-
really well
Okay,
suited
so-
for healing in both the raid and dungeons right now. Like I think there can like some people don't like virtue and some people don't like certain things, but like the fact that they can in raid right now they can spot heal without losing much HPS, and in dungeons they have a 12-second cooldown burst AoE heal. Like that is just so good right now for the current dungeons and raids. Like what they can do.
How are these uncertains over here, by the way? Because I'm certain that these 3 specs are about to be insanely OP.
So the uncertains are they couldn't give a number because there are differences between what was last on the PTR and the hotfixes that were sent to live.
Significant buff. What did it
That is
comment?
yeah. I mean that is the issue with those specs right now. Is there's a lot of untested bugs because the PTR isn't up. The last second on enhanced they nerfed one of their talents from like 6% to 3% and practically killed that build, and the PTR hasn't been up since. So enhance is very much just in the dark right now as to what that means, and they need to do testing, but they can't. So enhance is a very big TBD. It's very likely they're playing a brand new build because the previous build is now dead because it was slaughtered.
But they're still getting buffed. Like,
Word Up gave me like he's not sure. He's not confident saying anything right now. The Ellie Shaman is not uncertain. It is known, which is about the same single target, but that is only if you not reforge. You change all your secondary stats to their new best of mastery. Mastery was previously Ellie Shaman's worst stat.
yeah.
It is now their best stat. And if you do that correctly, you are working out to the same single target as before. If you don't do that, this patch is a nerf for Ellie Shaman.
And what's up with the Pally? Isn't that... I thought they were just like straight up getting buffed.
Prop Paladin, I believe it's very similar for damage. They don't exactly know. Or we're willing to say right now.
Well,
I guess for
correct me if I'm wrong.
damage-
Maybe you know more. The issue, part of the issues with Paladin is like last second they like removed some changes or something that were on the PTR. They didn't push certain changes or something. Like people don't
something
know.
like that. It's
Oh.
missing.
Yeah.
It's missing hotfixes or differences between what was reported on the notes versus what is actually on the PTR versus the hotfixes that got pushed to live. So it's just like it's one of these three. We don't know which one it is, and we don't want to say right now.
Interesting.
BM is in a very similar boat. They are expecting a buff, but the hotfixes between live and the hotfixes between PTR are also a giant are different. So they don't know what to expect.
I had a friend gassing up Marksmanship Hunter pretty hard. I'm surprised that this is only 2%.
I mean that these are all the data that the class writers gave me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I think it's one of those things that you don't really know unless you like... Dude, the PTR's been down for, what, 2 weeks or something like that now? So even if you wanted to go and test, you couldn't.
Yeah, and that's the main issue. I mean, people are going to be like talking about this. I mean, this was one of the biggest patches mid-tier for a lot of people. There's also Fury Warriors getting target capped at 5 on their biggest AoE abilities.
Lamau.
So their AoE is probably going down like 5% or something. You might notice Brood Twister ads or like Ration ads lifting a little bit longer, but yeah, Fury Warriors kind of getting hit while Frosty K getting buffed is a little sus.
Listen, the comp that I play in Mythic Plus primarily this season's Frosty K Enhancement Shaman. I'm getting buffed on 2 of the specs. I'm not complaining. Hold on, wait a second.
I heard Og was getting buffed too. Like the weird stuff. If you're playing Og, you should like try and figure it out or see what goes live. There was like some weird things with
they already pushed it live. Basically
Yeah.
they pushed the anniversary stuff live already. It was like a talent point in the bottom right portion of the node got reworked, like Molten Embers or something like that.
So
some
that
reason.
talent's been bugged since beta, where apparently like with certain things talented, if you max ranked power, it did that already. Like it would change how much damage it added based off of what level empowered fire breath you did with a certain talent. And then it was like, so like people were doing this build where they would max rank empower fire breath and then abuse it sort of. And like now I think they're fixing that now and they're just baking it into the talent normally.
Mhm.
And yeah, so just like small stuff. But if you do play Og, you may want to look into that.
I'm playing a completely different build. I'm playing like some like reactive hide ignition
Yeah,
rush.
that's like some skill commander.
Yeah. I'm playing something completely different than that.
Regarding the notes, can we talk about how very last second they tried to sneak in a poison cleansing totem nerf? Like,
Oh
yeah.
it wasn't on the notes at all, and then all of a sudden it just showed up on the live notes.
I think that if they're trying... okay, I'm pretty sure this is the only reason that they're even doing this nerf is because of Devour. I suspect
Yep.
that they saw people were like, Poison Cleansing Totem is completely negating the effects of Devour on Reddit and stuff like that. That's my Redditor voice. And Blizzard was like, well, they have to interact with the affix. They can't be Poison Cleansing Toteming it over and over again. And then they deleted it. And then I see this change, and I'm just like, this doesn't affect me. This actually only ends up hurting like average players who are pugging with that Devour affix on their key. Like, because how you actually use a Poison Cleansing Totem, so say for Arakara, the crawlers, you want to use Poison Cleansing Totem versus, you just press it, and then you recall it, and then you use Dispels for a couple seconds, and then you press it again. Like, and this doesn't change anything. You can still recall Poison Cleansing Totem. Like, it's still a 2-minute CD. Like, this only ends up negatively impacting people who are doing the Devour affix, who arguably need the most help with the affix anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of understand. A lot of people are comparing this to the Mass Dispel change from Priest. You know, they do a lot of making different creative abilities, but I can see how certain abilities can impact their design space. And especially with Totemic Recall, like having it on 45 seconds can definitely just negate like everything.
Yeah.
Sort of like how Mass Dispel, like for instance, the magic dispels, only the healer can do a magic dispel, right? Like that's sort of the point, is that you can only remove one. So then you have bosses like Siege of Borealis where, okay, that's the whole design space of the encounter, was one person gets dispelled, you have to defense or heal up the other person. And so like having Mass Dispel that you can use on every single one sort of like limits their ability to make that sort of encounter. And I think Poison Cleansing Totem was sort of like that. There was some weird situations, like for example, the big hauler Nerubian guy towards the end of City of Threads, you can basically just Poison Cleansing Totem every single time that goes out, and that guy literally does nothing. Like he's like a target dummy with some swirlies. And so I understand why they kind of did this. The big problem though is that like poison is different from magic, right? Like
yes,
the shaman can only dispel curses. They can't dispel poisons. They can't dispel diseases. They can't dispel bleeds. So like, you know, Poison Cleansing Totem was kind of like a throwing them a bone, like here's a talent you can take, it's way down at the bottom of the tree, and if you take it you can remove poison sometimes, and it feels kind of bad, but at the same time I think most people in the world are kind of like screw shamans anyway, at least the healers. So
okay,
yeah, I don't think it'll really change that much, but it's kind of funny how like I 100% agree with you that it's literally only because of Devour.
Welcome to Tettle's ice cold take of the week here. I think that dispels and specific like types of dispels, such as poison, such as curse, those types of dispels, disease, instead of non-magic types of dispels, should not be as prevalent as they are in Mythic Plus. And I think that Poison Cleansing Totem, while, you know, I think that Poison Cleansing Totem is an interesting mechanic, but I think that the reason that you need the Poison Cleansing Totem is because the mechanics that they're designed, particularly aimed at Mythic Plus, are just way too impactful, and they get negated too easily by an effect like Poison Cleansing Totem. It's like Devour is a situational thing where you can use magic dispels or you can use any other different type of dispel. And I think that, you know, Devour is honestly, in my opinion, an okay designed affix. I know that some people are probably going to hate that opinion, but I think in general it's like an okay designed affix. But I think that just the fact that they put so many poisons in Arakara and then you're reliant on Poison Cleansing Totem to actually be able to defeat that is just dumb. Like, and it doesn't feel good if you're a healer that doesn't have access to those tools. It's like, Grau, how do you go in there on a Disc Priest and say you don't have any poison cleanses at all? Like, what are you even doing? Like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna heal this, and then it's overtly punishing to the healer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it definitely feels bad, especially like as a Disc Priest now. It would be like, okay, let's say we're doing the crawler pull and there's a bunch of poisons, and then I could just have the shaman press one button and nobody worries about it, right? But now it's like, you know, you're going to need your Aug Evoker, your Boomkin to spam Dispel every 8 seconds. Not that they probably weren't doing that already on those pulls, but like, I mean, it definitely, like, I don't know. The Dispel situation is weird because, like, everyone sort of has that idea of, like, every healer should be able to Dispel. Like, the point of ailments is that you Dispel them. But, you know, Blizzard is very, very dead set on the idea of different ailments do different things. And I think the big problem here is we're high key players and we run into that. You know, like let's say you're doing a 9 or like a 10 is like the highest, right? So let's say you're doing a 5, like those poisons in Arakara, like, you know, you don't really care that much. Like the poisons from the hauler, you don't really care that much, right?
Yeah, I guess.
The reasons that, oh, you know, you don't have double poison Dispel in your group, this is terrible, feels bad, is because we're doing plus, you know, 70 keys. And we just, you know, they just don't design or care about encounters or classes for that.
I'm not out here being like, it's kind of like a kick in my mind. Like, you know, like a Dispel in this aspect is kind of like a kick. And like, you can design a dispel to be an interesting mechanic, but please just let it be like designed around a magic dispel. And I don't think it needs to be like this. We're putting 15 poisons on players, 70 gorillion poisons on players at once.
It's really interesting because I think they should have probably demoed this. I'm actually curious as to the reasons, because it could be a number of things. I think this probably should have gotten nerfed, but was it because of the Devour Affix? Was it because it was just too good at doing, in a poison season? Were people being too reliant on it? I mean, the damn thing was being dropped on Mythic Silken Court so that healers didn't need to dispel in phase 1. Like, we had a poison cleansing totem rotation set up for phase 1 because she spams poisons, and when you keep dispelling, that does nothing. Like, I definitely think it should have gotten nerfed. I'm wondering how much of it was Devour, but I also think that this Mythic Plus season is just lacking on dispel type variants. Like, there's one disease this season, I think, and it's Siege.
Yeah,
and you don't even need to dispel it.
No. There is a different disease in Siege that you do need to dispel. There's the heal absorb, or not the heal, the heal reduction thing from Yeah, that mob, you're cauterizing your tank and they're dwarfing and then they die.
Okay, but it's like 2 mobs in that area.
Yes. There's 2 mobs in the entire dungeon season that have disease dispels. Every other dispel is a poison.
There's like 20 fucking crawlers in Arakara, the last boss of Arakara, and numerous other poisons that you need to get rid of.
Well, dude, if I had Curse Cleansing Totem as well, I'm dropping that in the first couple of pulls of Stone Vault, and I'm like, wow, this is the greatest thing of all time. Like, it's just, in my opinion, it's just not a very fun mechanic. Like, just putting a bunch of debuffs on people that hit them for 140% of their HP over the duration of the debuff, and then it's just like, well, I can dispel it, or my healer can heal the shit out of me. That just doesn't feel very rewarding.
Yeah. I think dispel types have been a very controversial topic for a while, so I don't even think your take is that ice cold. I'm just wondering how much of it now is just like, should they just have removed this thing instead and then just slowed down poisons throughout the entire game?
That's fine too. Like, dude, remove the poison. I don't care about the poison cleansing totem. I think the poison cleansing totem is an answer to a problem of design.
Yeah, it's very efficient.
Yeah, I mean, we use it because it's OP, not because we want to use it. Like, if I didn't have to, I wouldn't even ask my shaman to talent it. Is there any other stuff that we want to talk about? The anniversary stuff? Oh, they're cantrip items. All these are boring.
Do you know that much about the raid or like the loot? Is there any like crazy items? I haven't really looked into it too much. I'm kind of like,
there's some items. Neri ended up putting this pretty comprehensive loot sheet up on Wowhead. There's like dinars. Squishy, can you run us down? Give us the rundown of like what exactly is going on with this?
So basically, when you kill bosses in the upcoming Blackrock Depths, it's a 10 to 15 raid. Or like players. You can't go into 30. It has to be max 15. Bosses will drop essentially keys, and you can turn in the keys for what is essentially a dinar if you played Shadowlands Season 4, or a Boolean if you played Dragonflight Season 4. It is a token that you can turn in to get exactly a raid piece that you want. And so one piece, I think you can do that 3 times total. But realistically, there's only one item that seems good from the raid from my understanding right now. And that is the item called Burst of Knowledge.
Yeah, it's a trinket.
Yeah, it is a trinket.
It's so funny reading all these items because these are all the like BRD items from Classic. And so I'm like looking at all these items. I'm like, I know what these items do, but they're just not the same.
Yeah.
So this Burst of Knowledge trinket is OP. 1, because it's probably bugged and doesn't share an on-use cooldown with other on-uses, aka Spy Masters. So unless they fix that, you are going to have some supremely OP bursts with Spy Masters plus this thing. Also, there's no on-use Mythic Plus trinket this season, which means if you need an on-use and don't have Spy Masters, this thing is going to be a replacement.
You hear about this thing, how it works with dots?
No.
Dots double dip. You get the initial application of the dot, and then you get the second hit of like the dot itself. So every single time you use a dot, it applies twice. For Twin Moons and like the bear duplicating dot effect, it'll actually apply 3 times.
God. I've heard the abilities with no mana cost will not trigger the effect. I've heard that's just a lie, and it just
Yeah, that's made up, apparently.
So this trinket is buggy as hell, but if you don't have it on use, or if they don't fix the fact that you can double on use it, you will be using this, and it'll be a Abyss and Shot trinket for everyone, I'm pretty sure.
I started looking at some of the other cantrip stuff, and I was looking at the staff, and apparently the staff just has like no stats on it, so it's completely useless. They sometimes will do this cool stuff with cantrip effects on items, and they'll just give you full stat budget, and then you just get the secondary proc. And then sometimes you just low roll, and the person who's designing the items for that set or just like, no, this needs to have like reduced stat value, and then the items are obviously completely useless, and there's no in between for some reason. And for what it's worth, these Blackrock Depths items, they suffer from the zero stat value thing where you have this ring and it reads, when struck in combat, you have a chance to inflict arcane damage back to the attacker. And there's no secondaries on this ring. Like, what are we doing here?
There's a case where that thing gets high enough damage that it's worth it. But I think part of the issue with all of these things is that it's hero track max. There is no mythic raid. Yep. It's heroic only. So it's hero track. And especially on weapons, not having a myth track weapon or not having a crafted weapon, which I think most people have, is going to kind of de-incentivize people from looking at it.
Okay, moving away from that. How do we feel about
I want to mention, I got to complain even more. This is my complaint episode. I'm looking through a lot of these items. Man, so much of this stuff is so cool. Like, it actually feels like such a waste. So if you're somebody who isn't super geared or like playing an alt or whatever, I bet doing this raid and like getting some of these items and messing around with this stuff is like probably really fun. Like, there's a lot of like little procs and like cool trinkets, and like I'm like, what is all this stuff that they made that they're just sort of like kind of throwing away almost? Like, hopefully it comes back in some form, or like there are so many like different items with procs and like set bonuses and like, I don't know, I feel like this seems like a little bit of a waste that they only drop in hero track, or that like they're not using them more. Like, I get that they can sort of upset things or whatever, but like, who cares? And they even added the dinars, so like if there was something that's really important, you could get it pretty easily.
You know something really funny? So it follows similar stat pathing to OG Blackrock Depths models or items as well. And Mastery wasn't a stat in BRD, notably. And so none of these items have Mastery on them at all. Yeah. Just like zero Mastery on like any of this gear. And it's just like, what in the world is going on?
I hope you did like Mastery.
Yes, I think I think that this could actually be very cool. So the items thing, I think that's a bit of an unfortunate situation, an unforced error from Blizzard's end. How are we feeling about the 10 to 15 player stuff and the dinar style coffer key system? Like, is this them experimenting with what it could look like for 10 to 15 players for the future?
No way. That's no way.
Okay, so no. What about the coffer keys? I mean, they've stated multiple times in interviews that it was not happening to a real season. Kind of similar thing.
I will say, though, the 15 people thing might be a little bit of a cook, because I feel like most guilds probably have around like 20 people, and maybe not everyone will want to do this. So I feel like this 10 to 15 thing is their goal, to like get it within striking distance so people can do like an optional like weekend raid or whatever and not have to pug people. I love 10 to 15 people. Like, to me, that's perfect. Like, I think they're thinking about like, they know that this is sort of like a for fun thing that not everyone's going to want to do, and they wanted to make it like a little bit more
puggable.
Puggable, accessible, whatever. And so I like that they did that. The coffer keys, again, I think like, I think that this is their protection for if something ends up being turbo bis. The difference between hero and myth track is pretty big, and so it's not likely that anything that's hero track will ever be bis. But if you're somebody who is not planning on getting myth items, like if you just AOTC raid and chill, or if you're somebody who's like, or it happens to be like a super bis item, you have the ability to grab one of them, and I think was a very good decision. It shows some foresight from them.
I think it'd be fun to go through like once. Twice.
I agree.
I agree. I've been doing so much stuff lately, but I do think it would be fun to sort of like do a blind playthrough of it.
I hope it's not easy like time walking raids. That's kind of the only. If it's like super easy like time walking raids, I think maybe I'd be a little bit disappointed. But if it has like an okay challenge to it, I would be pretty interested in like seeing it once.
I think part of the issue is the only way I think you personally are going to get like any kind of challenge out of it is going in blind. Because you're over geared for the content already.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm already 630 at them all. Yeah, that's true.
I think that's
might enjoy it though.
Oh my god, maybe TTV Tettles can get some loot.
Yeah, just cap your eye level like 600, go into heroic under geared, and then go blind. That could be
there
fun.
You go. Now you're thinking.
Hold on, let him cook. Could be good.
But that's if the servers come up on time tomorrow, because they're not coming up
Dude.
till
What is
3
that?
p.m. Pacific tomorrow.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. We have had, I swear, this expansion, is it just me, or we had the most maintenance this expansion that I've ever
Maintenance
seen?
has been brutal. 100% has been the most maintenance we've ever had.
Dude, I haven't had this much, like, in Shadowlands and Dragonflight. I feel like, dude, they went fully remote in Shadowlands for the launch, and we didn't have this much maintenance.
Yeah, and as you're listening to this right now during maintenance, I hope maintenance ends early or on time. We're all hoping that we're gonna be in the game.
Talk about a wild thing that I just like
We
came
gotta
up with
drag
that
out the
randomly.
episode. I just thought about all the people that are gonna be listening, waiting on maintenance.
Okay,
we gotta fill their time.
Okay, so you brought some Mythic Plus talk to the table, Growl. Where do you want to start with this?
Yup. So, I mean, actually, I'm gonna start with the bottom and just sort of, make a comment that I made on the last podcast. And maybe I'm just getting old, or maybe I'm not that competitive, or I don't know what's going on. But I hate to say it, but I think Mythic Plus, if you just have people that are your friends and you're just playing the dungeon and you like the class you're playing, it's just super fun and it's great. And dungeon design and anything doesn't matter at all unless it, like, as long as it isn't like brutally unfair or imbalanced. I mentioned it, I think, a little bit in the last pod we just started, and then this season, or this week rather, I've been playing with basically the same 5-man team on live most days, and then the MDI team, and I'm just having a blast. I'm just loving the expansion. I'm loving Mythic Plus right now, and that is not what I thought I would say looking at these dungeons. But it literally doesn't matter. If your class is fun and you're playing with people, it is just so much fun. And and where I wanted to go with that though is, so they post this thing on competitive WoW every week, the participation of M+, and I don't really know what it means. It's just kind of fun to look at. I left a link in the show notes there, and basically, the first week of the expansion was basically at record highs for completed Mythic Plus runs, and notably, compared to Dragonflight, well, this is Dragonflight Season 4. Why?
We have one for Dragonflight Season 1.
Scroll down, it's in the comments.
Yeah,
if
you click the arrow, if you click the arrow as well, you can see it.
Okay, hold on. Let's.
So it was lower than Dragonflight Season 1 and Dragonflight Season 3 at launch, but they consolidated the system a lot.
Yeah, notably there was a massive uptick in players when you would expect things to drop from week to week, right? I guess weirdly enough, week 3 to week 4, every single, or the first couple seasons were like that too. Yeah, I guess now looking at all the seasons there, it doesn't look super interesting, but I'm just sort of wondering, what do you guys think about the current Mythic Plus landscape right now? They changed Gilded Crest to +8.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't think that did anything, but I kind of feel like the quell of everybody angry has just died down. I am seeing the amount of visceral, oh no, Mythic Plus is ruined, that was going on 2 weeks ago compared to now is completely dead. And so I guess to poke the hive, are all the casual people, or the people that thought they could get 10s and not get 10s, did they all quit and now it's just normal people playing and everyone's happy, or what's going on right now?
I think the 8s was a little bit of a placebo buff. I think there was a lot of goodwill put on by the player base for not much change. Although I will say eights are definitely easier than 9s, obviously.
Of course.
Which obviously is going to help a bunch of people. But I think 8s, for people who are, Challenger's Peril comes in at 7. And for people that are struggling to get 7s done because of Challenger's Peril, the goal of 8 seems a hell of a lot closer than the goal of 9. I need to conquer 7, then I conquer 8, then I get that, then I get that. And so it's a little bit of a confidence booster of, my next upgrade isn't as far away, I think. In addition to, I think, just over time, people actually, get more used to the dungeons. You make, yes, your group blows up. That sucks. But you probably learned something from that dungeon, regardless of what or how small it may be. You probably learned something from that dungeon. What to pull, what not to pull, something about your rotation, holding cooldowns, or just general, fight knowledge.
What do we think about the fact that, Blizzard kind of consolidated out a few 100,000 people from the Mythic Plus system, even at the start of the patch, by removing those +2 to +10 keystone range and integrating that into Mythic Plus or M0? Do we think that was a step in the right direction even still?
It's a good point. I think I'm kind of on the fence about it. I've heard complaints that lower keys sort of feel dead even now because there just isn't really that much incentive to run them, right? Like basically if you want that low level gear, you can just go do delves and like you can do it by yourself. It's way faster, it's way easier. Like unless
That's a good
you're
point.
either genuinely enjoying Mythic Plus or you're on your way to doing plus 10s, it feels like there's not a lot of reason to do M plus. And to that I say good. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're somebody who doesn't want to do timed dungeon scaling content, but you feel obligated to like do some to gear up, then I don't like, you know what I mean? I think that's good. Like I think that if you're somebody who mostly only wants to like pug the raid and hang out with your friends, that fact that you can just like do delves and get some hero gear and then go raid and you can do M plus. Like I from an M plus player perspective, you know, obviously I want people to be playing M plus and have different incentives and stuff, but also like I understand what it feels like when I have to do a type of content that I really don't want to do to like do my content. And so, you know, I sort of feel like they're like quarantining off M plus in a good way. You know, like for instance, plus 12s, they're like, all right, if you do sweaty high keys, you can just do this weird crap, whatever you want to do. We don't care about you. And now like the plus 2s to plus, you know, basically the plus 2s to plus 8s is like that's there if you want to do it. Like if you want to do harder dungeon content and you enjoy it, then you can do it. But otherwise, like, you know, there's not really that much of a reason to farm plus 5s or plus 6s unless you're like, this is what I want to do and I'm getting gear from it. So I think it does take a knock off of the participation, the fact that they removed the lower difficulty, like because of the squish, and also because delves give good rewards. But I think I guess I'm interested to see how the participation goes now compared to the other seasons.
Yeah.
Like, is it just gonna like it sure seems like there's a pattern with how it works in every other season, so like maybe it still follows that, but I kind of expect like participation not to die down nearly as much, you know, because I think if you're like already if you're not having fun doing M plus or doing your weekly 10s, then you're not going to be doing M plus, and it's like I don't think that's really going to change throughout the season. You know, we're as I'm sure 4 or 5 weeks into the season, there were still plenty of people that were needing to spam M plus for gear in Dragonflight or previous expansions.
I think one of the things that we haven't really talked about is or like in this context, the affixes as well. We went from Voidbound, the Void Emissary, on that week of the dip, also to Devour. And I know there were a lot of complaints about Devour, but the wider WoW community, I think, generally had a negative opinion of Voidbound. I definitely think it evokes a negative reaction from people, especially from that unfair standpoint that Grell was talking about earlier. When it spawns on the first boss miss to turn a scythe damage phase, it just feels bad. When it spawns when Stitch Flesh comes out, it feels bad. The affix is just bad on the last boss of Necrotic Wake, period. So there's just a lot of like negative feelings that comes from that. And then you go to Devour, which is probably one of the easier affixes. And when you screw it up, you know, the mobs heal a little, but it's more like that guy just didn't press his dispel, or more realistically, my healer didn't heal this off me.
Is Devour the greatest affix they've ever made? In terms of not weekly ones? Because here's what I'll say about Devour, right? It is like very easy. It's very clear that you like the affix and it makes your guys stronger. You would choose to put that at like there's not many affixes that you would choose to put on your key if you could.
I'd put Ascendant on my key, I think.
On top of that, there's definitely like ways that you can game it. Like, man, does it feel good to like do 4 of them and then leave 1 of them on some person and then milk it out and then dispel it to extend it? Like, on top of that, I think it just doesn't really interfere with you, you know? Like at worst, you have to press a global to get it off you or have your healer press, like even if no poison cleansing totem or like, you know, make it 3 minutes or whatever, like, I don't know. I feel like it's just so low. Like it's something that you have to think about a little bit with your talents and you have to think about when you're playing, but like, it's not really hard and it doesn't really like overlap with other like one thing I think that a lot of new players don't necessarily realize because of the way your frames look. So it is a heal absorb, like sort of, but it doesn't actually absorb healing. So like when your party is in danger and you're healing, it doesn't stop your healing. Like you're still healing your party when it's active. Like I was watching a viewer submitted miss where it went out during the intermission and miss, and everyone was like, oh no, but no, like that's not how it works. Like that's actually great because you're healing there anyway, and you just heal through the affix.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people might not even know that's a thing when they're complaining about it being difficult. There are a few very small quirks. One of which is the way that it works is it heals the mob a percentage of like each one that doesn't get dispelled. So if you happen to be fighting the last boss of Dawnbreaker and you don't leave, if you don't dispel all of them, that can be a very bad situation for your group. But other than that,
They
I
fixed
think,
it. So
oh, they
it's,
did. Oh, okay, they did fix it. Great.
it's about right now. But yeah, we let one go off on the first day. Oh boy, did that boss heal.
Oh,
boy.
yeah, I healed the shit out of boss too. As for your question, is it the best affix ever? I think it's probably up there with. I actually think that all of the bargains are pretty good.
Affixes own right now. I hate to say it.
It-
Now that there's the timer thing, I don't know. I'm pretty bullish on Mythic Plus right now.
Awakened is good. I think Awakened is pretty good. I think that Encrypted was good. I thought that Shrouded was good at the time as well. I don't know if other people really thought that Shrouded was good. But those are the
top three titles. Top three in
ever.
order. Yeah.
Like what are we quantifying? It's like I would put these on my key if I could. Like I found it to be fun. Or like because like some of the other ones I wouldn't put on my key.
I mean, just in the nature of Growl's question, what like is Devour the best affix? Just general best.
I thought Encrypted was the best, so I don't think that Devour is better. Then I would probably go like Devour second, like Ascendant third, and then I would go like Awakened probably, and then Shrouded, and then like Voidbound and Oblivion are both fine. I think that
you can't even think about things that are not seasonal.
Voidbound,
right?
Voidbound and Oblivion are way better than other things like Reaping and Infested and Tormented and all those other affixes. I think that and that's kind of I agree. I'm actually bullish on the affix as well. I mean, I made a video talking about like the fact that I thought the affixes were on the up and up, and I see, dude, whenever people complain about the affixes, it just makes me worried so much that Blizzard is going to get the wrong like the wrong idea about what people actually want out of the affixes, because I actually do think that they're moving them in the right direction. Now, and this is not to say that they can't get better. They can always get better. But I do think that these are fairly solid in terms of like what Blizzard designed. And dude, they initially designed for the season Thorned, Reckless, Attuned. We high rolled. Let me read you Thorned. Non-boss enemies without mana inflict physical damage to their attackers when attacked, but take 10% increased holy and shadow damage. We fucking high rolled our affixes, by the way. We got good affixes in comparison to whatever that is.
Bro, that Thorned affix, when we played it on beta, you know how the mobs in Dawnbreaker at the beginning exists for the whole dungeon?
Yes.
So we had, I don't remember what it was, a Warlock dot that exists on the mob that doesn't go away.
It was absolute corruption, yes.
Yes, so we're just doing Dawnbreaker with Evade's Afflock, and he just has a dot on him permanently for the whole dungeon because of the Thorned affix. And like, yeah, I don't know. I think I think they're on such a good track with the affixes. It was a very weird feeling today with my push group where we, by Monday you always have some junk keys and you sort of are like, what do we spend the last little bit of time on? And we're just like, well, tomorrow we just wake up and we just have all 16 keys again, and it's the same affixes. Like we can just push tomorrow, like even though it's Monday.
Homework is dead.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. Like I think my biggest complaint about M Plus is sort of like the natural complaint that I think everybody has about WoW, in that the difficulty creep of how the game just gets constantly more complicated and constantly harder to challenge people more and more. Now that I've been playing for 5 years and I see BFA to Shadowlands to Dragonflight and just watching every single dungeon pool get harder and more complicated and require more weak auras, I would say that's my biggest complaint. But other than that, like, man, I mean, I love being able to upgrade things with crests and stuff. I love being able to, like, get my weekly vault and have choices and like get bis items from dungeons. Like I love not having to worry about affixes that much. Like the death timer thing kind of sucks, but like, man, I feel like there's just so now that I'm like actually playing keys and in the meat of it, like I'm pretty optimistic about Mythic Plus right now, which I feel like is maybe a little counter trend. I don't know. What do you think, Tuttles?
I think that my experience, I don't think is like representative of like everybody's experience whenever they're dealing with Mythic Plus just in general. Because most of my experience with Mythic Plus is I invite people to play and we just play in like a group, and very rarely do I interact with the system via like LFG and something like that. But personally, I'm having a lot of fun. It's one of those situations that for me, and this is why actually, whenever we were talking about like the beginning of the expansion or whatever, I was like, dude, I wish that M0s were here. I get a lot of enjoyment out of just like grouping up with my friends and just like playing week in and week out, and I think that ends up being a pretty positive experience for me personally. What is this?
Oh, random thing I wanted to say too about the Void Emissary affix or whatever. It actually, funny enough, goes back to that point that we made at the beginning of the show about how so many classes now like single target and then cleave off of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I think that's actually kind of a funny consequence of this, is that every class wants to like hit the prio mob and then build damage off of it, and so many classes lose so much by switching and going to that Void guy. And I get that, like, it's sort of the same thing. Like, in theory, if you're pugging, it's sort of the same thing as that, right? Like, just bring a Windwalker monk, right? Like, bring a Windwalker monk and just Todd every single one and it owns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or like bring some class that can switch off and kill it. But I think maybe people just haven't figured it out yet. But that's to me why it kind of seems like a miss, is because like switching to like some classes just switch targets so much better than other classes, and like doing bad damage in a dungeon just always feels bad and is always not fun, and like you never want to do that.
I think progging keys is actually the most fun that I have in Mythic Plus. I don't know if you feel similar, but like I think that everybody in this call kind of feels similar in that situation, where it's like the most fun that I have whenever I'm playing video games just in general is whenever I can like actively see myself and like the group or like the people that I'm playing with steadily getting that sense of progression, and they're like getting better each and every single pull or each and every single attempt inside of that dungeon. And like it also happens with me where I'm watching myself improve my own gameplay. I start to see like my defensive usage improves over time, where I'm pressing my offensive cooldowns improve. I see myself doing more damage and stuff like that. And that to me is the most fun that I have whenever I'm doing Mythic Plus dungeons and stuff like that, is whenever I'm actually learning these new things. But I think for some people, they don't really like that kind of stuff. They just kind of want the reward. But like,
but I mean, like, to be fair, then like
I
that
like the
system
prog.
is already for them, right? Like they can move up to 10s, they get their 10s. Like, I don't know. No, I 100% feel the same way. Not to toot my own horn or whatever, but I remember like at the beginning of the season, I was like dying on priests, and I legitimately thought like, dude, you can't do these dungeons as priests. Like, there's just too much damage. And we did Siege of Borealis 14 into 15 into 16 into 15 today, and so we basically did it back to back to back so many times. And like, bro, I was the god of shields. Like, I was like saving so many lives, and I'm literally, and I feel like I'm not really normally the type of person that says stuff like this, but like I was thinking, bro, all these guys are gonna go into a siege sometime with another healer, and they're gonna get owned, and they're gonna be like, damn, Disc Priest really is good. Like, those shields really were good. Like, they're gonna go in with a shaman and die to like these random wombo, like, chain into charge or whatever, and be like, damn, like, what was happening? When I was playing with Growl, we was taking like no damage. So yeah, it was definitely like I noticed that today, and like, man, I feel so much more comfortable in this dungeon after doing it. And like, I guess that is like a sort of weird, not everyone enjoys doing the same PvE thing over and over again, but yeah.
Necrotic Wake, by the way.
Oh, we got slaughtered by Necrotic Wake today.
Oh, dude, I always wiped the last boss of that dumb fucking dungeon, man.
That last boss is hard. That boss is really, really hard. Okay. Also, I did a Necrotic Wake, and I got one shot by the worm on the first boss today.
Huh?
Oh,
that goes hard. I mean, you knew that I was going to one-shot you before it meleeed you, so it's like, it happens.
It's a worm,
The last boss in Necrotic Wake is like prime candidate for changing that Dark Exile to work at a specific percent.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Dude.
Just have it happen to one DPS.
One person every 33% or something.
The way we wipe to the boss is the exact same every single time. It's both of my DPS are downstairs. One of them is about to come back up, and it's me, an Aug Evoker, the healer and the tank are up top, and then the shield spawns, and you're just like, all right, I guess.
Brought a Disc Priest.
And then the DPS is like flying in. He's getting carried in on this angel, and he gets dropped off, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And then he gets dropped off into a 4-stack and just immediately dies. And you're like,
"Yep."
I guess that was cool. That was exactly what I was hoping for whenever I was playing this dungeon. I guess I'm going to play Unravel there.
True. It's going to be it's a huge buff on the patch. So
true.
25% buff on the patch.
It'll be good.
But one of the things we didn't talk about was on Tuesday they changed the Voidbound buff.
They did.
So it is.
That's right.
So it's actually a pretty sizable buff now. It was previously 50% cooldown reduction, or I believe 15 seconds after cooldowns, and healing taken, which I'm pretty sure no one cared about, to 20% burst and 30% cooldown reduction. That is a huge buff.
Yes.
Yep.
This is now Prideful 2.0, and it's not crap.
This
I again, like, I'm happy with how they're, I feel like I think maybe, and it sounds silly to say, but maybe they were like too worried about high key people, like they didn't want to do these affixes that made you so powerful because they were like, oh no, this would disrupt, the week to week or whatever. But I feel like now that it's just 11 keys and lower, and it feels like they've really changed with the way that they're making these affixes and tuning them, like, and I feel like it's just a huge dub. Like, I don't know, like, I understand that the affixes sometimes have like some pretty bad overlaps with bosses. I think that's like the biggest problem with them, but to be fair, a lot of them there's like counterplay, it's like, oh, this was a terrible overlap, we couldn't get these orbs, and now the buff or the boss is buffed and damaged, but like, okay, everyone pressed their defensive and it's only lasts so long. Like, I don't know, I hate to be so positive, but I feel like everything that I would like, I'm just thinking like going back to BFA dungeons and like with the squad that I had with like this affix set, like imagine playing BFA dungeons with the people that we used to play with, and then like being able to push every week and like having these affixes in the dungeons. Like, man, that would be so much fun. Like, I feel like they're really cooking. I hate to be, I don't know, I just feel like people have been kind of down about the dungeons right now, but I genuinely feel like it's just a matter of like, if you want to do high keys, like, you have to be playing with the same people and like progressing together and learning. And then if you are, it just unlocks how fun it actually can be.
Dude, I saw something on the front page of the competitive WoW Reddit. I don't remember what it was. They were complaining about the second boss of Arakara with the Oblivion affix. Oh yeah, here it is. Anubizet, the second boss of Arakara and Oblivion affix. And I think that this is a situation where it's like none of us are like talking about the affix and just in the sense of, oh yeah, there's this unfair interaction, because I think that most people would agree that the Oblivion affix on that boss is pretty obnoxious. But it's more just like in the sense of there were so many points of the old affix system that were 3 times as obnoxious as the Oblivion affix, like randomly on this one boss one time. And you're like, okay, thank God. Dude, I just like joking will call out Sanguine sometimes. Whenever we have mobs that are dying underneath a boss, and it's just like we just like actual have Sanguine PTSD where I'm sitting there thinking, we got to move this boss, bro. I have to knock. Like we're gonna heal the mob. Like it's like,
dude,
it's so
that was
bad.
after every Sanguine week. If you ever played tank, you would like after a Sanguine week that you played a lot of, you would just automatically, like, for at least a day or two, keep moving mobs when they die because you think they were going to drop Sanguine.
Dude, I would have it in raid. I would literally just be like, I would sit there watching raid trash and just be like, oh my God, Sanguine. And I'm just like, hold on, I'm going through it right now.
But I think there's something to be said about the unfairness of, like Rel said, the Orb affix, definitely some unfair moments. Voidbound, some unfair moments, I'd say, that I think could maybe be addressed going forwards. But one of the things that I kind of hope is that we don't get stale with these affixes going forwards, because we got stuck with bolstering and Sanguine since fucking Legion.
8 years. For the record, that was 8 years long.
For 8 years. And I hope, like, even if it's just like one affix they take out and put in something new every season, or even every other season, I'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
Like, I think the Orb one's probably my least favorite right now, that I think maybe they can go back to the drawing board with that, put in a new affix in a season or two, call it good. I think people would be happy with that.
Okay, what are some unfair and overpowered things that you guys think need to be changed or nerfed in dungeons? Obviously, there's the last boss in Necrotic Wake, and the second boss in Necrotic Wake, and the third boss in Necrotic Wake.
They made it better, though, because now... So are you Spirit? What are you doing with spears in Necrotic Wake, by the way? I'm sure everyone wants to know.
Triple spearing the boss that I previously triple speared before.
No way! Ain't no way you're triple spearing that boss.
Bro, the fucking disc priest, man. We don't have damage for the boss. I play with the fuck here. Okay, please, if there's a Blizzard developer watching this, please fix Restoration Shaman to be able to do damage on the Dawnbreaker and in the Necropolis and Necrotic Wake, man. We literally have to triple spear Surgeon Stitch Flesh because we don't have a fucking disc priest doing 1 million DPS. Growl. We have a Resto Shaman doing 250k.
Teddle's rapidly losing favor of all of the non-shamans by calling Blizzard to buff Resto Shaman.
No, it's just insane, man. They just don't do damage to the boss, so we have to triple spirit. Okay, we have to triple spirit. In theory, we could probably get away with double spearing that guy and then spearing the last boss. But like, You still just triple spear him because you have to get through that boss.
Yeah, I mean that's funny actually. Yeah, we've been spearing second, third, fourth, and so being able to spear. Well, sometimes we send 2 on third. It depends on how it goes. Basically, we'll do spear second, spear third, and then see how it goes. Like we had a little bit of a kerfluffle on our last necrotic wake, and so we sent the spear. But I think in theory we shouldn't need to spear the second or third boss twice.
The problem with that boss is, if you ever have 2 ads out at once, you're wiping. And you're not wiping to the heal check. You're wiping because you can't get the boss off the platform again, because then the ads hook one another over and over again, and then the pulsing AoE overwhelms you eventually. But you literally couldn't get the boss off the platform to begin with if there are 2 ads up at once. And the only way those ads die is if they get incidentally hit by a spear, and then they die to your DK's Breath of Syndragosa over time. I would fix that boss. I would hit that boss again. That boss sucks.
You have Stitch Flesh PTSD, I'm sorry to say.
That guy's beans. That's got to be... Okay, whenever we wiped the last boss, we go, man, we played bad. We could have played that better. We wiped the third boss, we go, this game is dog shit. and these are the main differences here.
In terms of other unfair moments, I actually don't think there's much else.
Yeah, that's kind of why. So I threw this question in there. I was kind of thinking too. I can't really like it. They did a lot better than I thought they would in terms of like, I feel like the new overlap tech that they've included in this expansion has been really, really good. Like the fact that they're making it so like, you know, the grip and the charge won't happen, the slam and the debuffs on the last boss. Like Siege, you really notice the overlap tech, but I feel like there's some, I'm trying to think of other examples, but yeah, I don't know.
I have a question. Are the gatekeepers playable mod? Do you play the gatekeepers in Necrotic?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So basically, the way that, in my opinion, for like
Yes.
people listening, the first pull you have Bloodlust. You just do a big pull with the gatekeeper. You blast it down. It should only get 1 debuff. You can grab a shield, and your whole team's invulnerable during the shield. They also changed the shields if people don't know yet somehow, but you can cast with a shield. So literally anybody can just grab it, and you press it, and you get 8 seconds of 50% DR on your whole team. So 100%, like that's a free guy, right? Like you just add it into any first pull you're doing. Pull that in, use a shield. Then in terms of a second one, that's where it gets a little bit more challenging. In Pugs, I might maybe only just do that one and then figure it out from there. If you have a more organized group, what a lot of people are doing is grabbing that Flesh Crafter guy on the left and then keeping him alive and then using him to help with the next gatekeeper. But as you like, you know, they are still pretty scary mobs as you start pulling more then. But the other benefit is, you know, everyone remembers doing that boss in Shadowlands, the first boss, where you just have no room because you're skipping all these gatekeepers and then someone pulls the gatekeeper and you're just wiping. Yep. But now that you actually pull that one, you have so much room for activities on that boss now. So yeah, we definitely pull the gatekeepers, and I can't really think of, there's like little weird things that are really buggy and frustrating. Like for instance, the swirlies on the last boss of Mists are like still really stupid. Like you can't see them and they tick you way too fast. Like I would like to see some, maybe like make it a ramping debuff where like, you know, if you stand in it for 3 seconds, you're dead, but like just 1 second, you're like, oh no, let me get out, you know?
I will say some other technology that I'm actually happy that they introduced to some mobs, and they should continue to use this. If you're a Blizzard developer and you're out here listening to me, continue to use this technology that you use for this dark Nightfall Dark Architect, and what are these other mobs? The Ritualist. Please continue to use this thing where this Tormenting Ray can't go on the same player over and over again. Instead, it alternates players in your group. It also happens with the second boss in Arakara, where this guy's infestation can't pick the same target twice. It actually cycles through your entire party before going back to that person. Continue to use that for more mechanics, I beg. The amount of times that my shaman gets picked by this, what is this thing? Rot Spew. The amount of times that my shaman gets picked 3 times in a row by Rot Spew and dies is really, really frustrating. I like continue to use the cycle through my entire team mechanic. I'm a big fan of that. Please God.
Sounds good.
The only other unfair thing I think is like the Irontide Raider stuff that I've been complaining about for literal weeks at this point. This mob is obnoxious. I also think, what are these other mobs? It's the Shredder. This guy sucks.
Oh, yeah. The guys that they like jump on you and spin.
My cheat Death Taker.
So we've actually been, and this might not be, well, it's also maybe a hierarchy thing, but yeah, I mean, I'm looking at your route. I see the same thing. Like we just skip so much in the beginning now. It does feel like, honestly, it feels a little bit BFA-esque in terms of like, there are certain areas in some dungeons where you just go F that and you just don't even think about anything in that area, right? Like, I'm trying to think of examples. The first boss of Siege, the first area in Miss is like, okay, you do the first pull, then you just get all the way to the boss as fast as you can in like Lust. Even though that stuff is like pretty good count, like so many of those pulls at the beginning of Miss are so nasty.
There's a
lot of like,
there's a couple of Groomba toll pulls, dude. These double lava benders. You just see these guys. You see these two lava benders standing there. What are you gonna do? Like these people slap your girl in the ass. You just let them take her. Like she's gone.
Groomba toll. That's the one where that's actually our lowest key right now. That I've really.
It was the hardest key of the season by far. Like
so,
it's so hard.
There's basically a thing where you take the boss and you just the dragon boss, third boss, and you just pull it into a corner and it bugs it, right? Like that's basically what people are doing. Gosh, I'm really not looking forward to when that gets fixed because then those
what do you mean bug it?
It's not so
apparently there's a little so the hard part of the boss, right, is it drops those tornadoes everywhere. And so and the ads, right? And so apparently if you tank the boss like in a little cubby on the right side of the room, like on a pile of stuff or whatever, Tettles always has the clips.
Yeah, so basically you pull the dragon into the corner, and then
it summons the ads on the boss. Yeah,
it summons the ads in the boss, and then the tank,
also the tornadoes are way out of the room.
The tank doesn't get hit by the tornadoes, and then nobody gets hit by the tornadoes at all. And so hold on, you'll see him like walk into the corner here, and so he just literally stands here. You eat the frontal, which sucks, but using the geometry of the room, it just like puts the eligible spawn points of the ads like right in the boss's hitbox. So you can barely see it here, and this makes this boss. Okay. This makes this boss go from like a 4.5 minute encounter to like a 3-minute boss fight, and this fight sucks without doing this. Fight is so hard to do it normal.
Yeah,
I completely agree. I thought you were talking about the bug where you make the ads not spawn. Period.
I think they fixed that. There was a thing before where you would do that and it wouldn't spawn ads, but I think they will always spawn. But ads, both of the ads spawning in the boss like that is still insane for like, you know, as we've been talking about, right? Cleaving onto the main target, doing damage around it, like not having to run around. Because like a really big issue that happens, right? Let's say you have two different DPS that are targeted and they're near the ads. Both the DPS are running around and then you just have an Aug Evoker sitting there like, what am I supposed to do? And the ads like don't die and everyone's running around. The boss takes a long time.
Dude, that's how I feel most of the time. I'm just kind of running around.
Yeah, so many times it's like me as a Disc Priest and an Aug Evoker, we're just hitting a mob doing 0 damage. It's like, hopefully someone can do damage soon.
The crabs at our first boss, I'm like, I'm gonna own these mobs. It's just like, I'm not doing anything to those mobs, man. Like,
the one unfair thing that for me is the totems, the trash, the final boss, the stone vault. I just hate. I hate totems.
Oh yeah.
Can they just stop making like things totems?
All right. Here's the hack for the totems. You pull up LFG. You're inviting people to your group. You hover over this dark blue specialization. You hover over and see what they are. It says enhancement shaman. You scroll over to the right and you click the check mark box and you invite the enhancement shaman and they solo the totems for you.
I just think totem mechanics are so
bad. They're bad. They're so bad.
How many people cannot hit them? Period. Like, stop making totem mechanics, please. I beg. Especially after explosive, we got rid of it. We don't need it back.
But even then, like, okay, the totems are total crap. I hate that area. It's probably one of my least favorite areas. But the totems have so little health. Like, they don't have that much health, right? Like, they don't cast that often. They don't have that much health. Like, they're still bullshit. But like, I feel like they've just toned down the amount of like brutal stuff. I would say again, like, you know, it's annoying that mobs are so complex and there's so many mechanics that a lot of the dungeons just feels really like on rails. Like Stone Vault's an example of one where it's just like you're literally just like in a hallway going forward the whole time, and there's you can do a little bit of deciding what you want to pull in like the area with all the dwarf guys, and you can like skip the loaders or whatever. But for the most part, there's like not really that much routing.
The double loader pack with their like untargetable buff. Or like, sorry, the can't avoid buff, that just dot they put on you, it's just
the mortar.
Oh my god, that thing hits
both
so
of
hard.
the targets. So I feel like there's too many dots right now where the initial hit does way too much.
I agree.
Like that dot is 15 seconds long and there's 2 of them. Like they don't need, the initial hit doesn't need to do 80% of your health and a +10, you know?
Same with the Future Waters, the last boss of Borealis. That's the other one that I'm thinking of. Dude, I think that, like, to me, one of the bigger things that's like pretty obnoxious, and they have this in like so many dungeons. It's like these trilling attendants, and they have them. What are they called later on in the dungeon? Web mages. Dude, just tone down the amount these mobs are casting. We don't have to chain cast Like, please give them like put them on like a 3-second lockout, and then give them the lockout that's attached to whatever the kick is as well, and then have them recast. We don't need to have them casting just spam over and over again. It sucks.
The funny thing is, I saw a thread on Reddit where they were talking about cast lockouts.
Yeah.
There are a notable number of things that have different cast lockouts in dungeons this season. Like the attendants in the first area of Arakara, if you kick their bolt or you kick their channel, the other one is on a different lockout.
Yeah, they're on different spell schools.
They won't move.
They're different spell schools.
Yeah,
so they start casting the other thing. Yeah, it's fucking stupid.
It's very annoying. Like, is it a game breaking? No. Is it annoying as heck when you don't have a DK? Yes.
Well, here's the thing with the attendants in Arakar. You go web bolt, and they immediately start casting Resonant Barrage, and then you just immediately kick that, and then they immediately start web bolting again because they're off DR, and you insta kick that, and then they start moving. So we've just committed 3 kicks, and it's this guy, and it's always this guy, and he's always stuck here, and you're never getting him into this pack unless you have a DK that grips him across the world. Like this guy is literally stuck here permanently.
Every time I get to that pack, I knock him forwards because I know what he's going to do.
It's him, yeah. I know which one you're talking about, too, because he's always stuck there.
The one last question I have about the class is, I know we had a lot of talks about the stop change. And I know a lot of the community has been talking about the stop change. You know, we've been playing for about a month at this point. How do you guys feel about it?
You can take this
one. I think people are returning back to normal. Like, the problem is there was that sort of idea that, okay, you could just stun things and it would stop it. And then you would kind of run into this problem where, like, there'd be 3 casts. Some guy would be like, oh, there's a bunch of casts, I'll sweep. But it's like, you know, you need to kick those. You know, those aren't meant to be AoE stun. Like, you have to kick those. And I think people are sort of starting to learn. I still think there's something that needs to be sort of thought about in terms of, like, kicks and pugs. Like, you know, let's say 2 people, like, some you know, something like if you kick into a stun or something like that, like, I don't know. I haven't really cooked up a good solution yet, but I think the stop changes make sense. Like, I think having, I don't know, there's not really that many mobs that are that problematic with kicks, and the ones that are there are like, I mean, to be fair, like, again, it comes back to the dungeons being over-designed or whatever, but, like, that's what they want, right? They want that mob to be a caster and require a bunch of kicks. Like, they don't want you to just sweep 3 times and then the pack's dead.
So let me take this pull on screen, for example. So there's this pull, and it's just like a standard pull that you can do in Arakara, and it has 2 web mages in it. And you don't know in advance that this pull is just a complete landmine pull unless you are in a group that's in voice that's like got 5 coordinated people in it. But it is a landmine pull. And it's a landmine pull because unless you do exactly this, where you actually let the volley go off over and over again, because the volley doesn't even do damage to you. So you just let this volley go off. It gets healed up immediately. Who cares about the volley anyways? And then you kick these bolts over and over again, and whenever the mob starts casting this 4-second cast long volley, then you CC chain it permanently, and then you're using your CC on this 4-second long cast, and that's basically what the CC chain has turned into. And it's not that the mobs won't recast, it's that you know, you're actually throwing all of your stops at these mobs that do recast. And I think it's what Growl said. I really want to echo the sentiment. It's far more punishing for pugs than it is for, like, high-end players, because, like, dude, we're gonna let this volley go off because we realize that this mob does no damage to us with the volley for whatever reason. It's just undertuned. I'm not.
So really actually, I want to walk back something I said a little bit. So one thing that we may be a little bit spoiled here is it feels like every single comp this season is 2 melee kicks, and then you have an AUG, which is, like, not that long of a kick,
like 2
and then you
shamans, by the way.
Yeah, and you have a healer who almost always has a kick, right?
This is my AoE
Shaman
CC
kick
tracker.
is a really good kick. I feel like this current meta has a whole lot of kicks, and I could see that. Imagine if you played a comp that was like, I don't know, Boomkin, Mage, Shadow Priest, or something like that. I maybe would have a different opinion about the stops in the dungeons right now. Like, imagine if you had to deal with some of those packs with that. I mean, I guess Beam is good sometimes.
Beam is good. Okay, so Solar Beam is probably the best AoE CC in the game right now. For caster mobs, you know, it's just a blanket 8-second. It's like Silent Sigil. It's like we have pressing roared our Silent Sigil type of beat. There are these pulls though that is 2 Silk Binders and a Herald. Like, what are we doing? Like, these are 2 mobs that spam cast a 2-second long cast, and this is a mob that spam casts a 4-second long cast. Like,
yeah.
Who's taking this?
Dude, we were cooking an MDI, and you would think, oh, it's a 10 key, it doesn't really matter. our route in this dungeon, and we're interested to see what other teams do. Our route is run all the way to the first boss and then do those 2 mini bosses with the boss with lust and then just leave. That whole giant area in the first thing is City of Threads. We don't pull a single mob in there other than the mobs that we have to. Like, that's how bad those mobs are, is you don't even pull them in MDI. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some other teams have some Omega route, but like those are like, we're doing a 10 key and we're 5 insane gamers and we're like, nope, not any of the. We're like trying to find stuff to pull, and we're looking at every single pack around the boss. We're like, nope.
Yeah. Base lockout 3 seconds on casters that spam any bolt. Just base 3 second lockout plus the lockout of the kick, and I think it just improves the experience a ton, because then it'll reduce the amount of incoming damage too.
The funny thing is, with casters that spam, they have the technology to make them not spam. They did that at Delves.
What did they do? Actually, I don't even know what you're talking
about. So, if you remember from Delves, there were the web blasters or web mages or something like week 1 that just sat there the entire time and beat your ass with 1 million web bolts.
Oh, is that the brand meme of the Nerubians are standing in these webs or whatever?
No.
Oh, okay, never mind.
It's just a webcaster that just spams 1 million web bolts at you.
Wait, no. I thought actually, to interrupt you, I thought the bug was that those mobs didn't have a melee attack, and when you kicked them, it would just stand there because it didn't have anything else to do.
I don't know exactly what the bug was, but regardless, those things just spam casted you. Even when you kick, they would just stand there. But regardless, they added a cooldown to that. So basically, they would cast, now they would move. They would cast, then they would move. Even if you don't kick. And I think that, like, they have the opportunity to do that, but I think they don't use it because they want it to be spam casted. I don't really know.
They see it as, I remember hearing in an interview about this, they see it as like an archer. Like, they see it as a guy who it's your job to get it in, and it just shoots, and it does a little damage, tiny bit of damage, 80% of your health, and then, you're just supposed to get it in. As I remember them specifically saying that, and one of the funniest thing about the volleys is they talk about, like, important casts to kick and not important ones, and it was almost the opposite, right? Remember in the beta when they added that green animation to the volley, and everyone was like, this is so great, like, this green animation is on the really important cast, and you kick that one, you leave the other ones. But now it's actually the opposite, right? You're not even kicking the volley because the bolts that it spams are so much more dangerous.
We literally go, heal this volley. Just let it go up. We go, you can heal that. I'm standing in this healing rate. And look, we actually don't even take that much damage. I would describe this as getting the volley healed off of us. We have a 2-stock of this volley here. We get this volley healed off relatively late in comparison to how long it normally takes our shaman to get it off. And we only take 30% of our health in this volley because it's attached to like a heal absorb. Wherein, if I got hit with a bolt, it would do like 75% of my HP.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a fucking archer. That's John Wick with a gun, man.
That's an archer. It's fucking Legolas.
Yeah, it's not an archer. Yeah, there's no way that you... I think that maybe it's that we're disconnected. Like, I mean, maybe we're just doing too high of keys that we don't see fair, how this is an archer. But like, dude, this isn't an archer. This guy ruins my life.
On a 10, the web bolts do 2.25 million damage, I want to say, because I've died to double bolt before. Those things do a lot of damage still on a 10.
But a 10 is the the 10 is the ultimate challenge for Mythic Plus players. So
you should be kicking
it.
It
doesn't feel bad when you just died a double web bolt. Like, should I be paying attention to it? Like, maybe.
That's kind of why that's why I kind of say it every single week. I feel like just the dungeons are over designed at points where it's just like, do we really need this many casters? Like, for me, I'll figure it out no matter what the challenge is that you're giving me. I'm playing, I'm Ultimate Sweat Lord Goblin Mode X, and I'm playing, 6 days a week or whatever the hell, right? And this is my job as a streamer or whatever. So I'll figure it out. What happens if you want to casually do Mythic Plus? Like, what is, like, John, who just came home from his 9 to 5 and he wanted to do keys for 3 hours, like on a random Tuesday, going to do whenever he strolls up to this pack and it's got 2 caster mobs and they just bolt him to death?
The weird part is not even all the bolts do that. The last packs of Stone Vault with the Earth Bolt, they just bolt your tank the entire time. Like, you don't need to kick anything there as long as your tank can live it.
Well, you should help your tank. Like,
that's his job, man. It's the healer's job.
Okay.
No, but I don't know. It's just inconsistent, and I think part of it's by design. But damn, is it frustrating to die to bolt sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Yep, I think all of us agree. Okay, cool stuff that we've seen this week. So I think that Blizzard developers will actually watch our podcast, by the way. And so the tip that I had last week had to do with subduing grasp infinitely, in having an infinite range on pulling bosses. Little did Blizzard know that Bear Druid has the exact same thing with Looter Beam, that if you focus target with Looter Beam, you can actually pull mobs and bosses all the way through walls and whatnot. Yeah.
I saw that on the list and I thought Tettles is just trying to get this nerfed. This is not even a tip. This is just him. At this point, Tettles is just blatantly trying to get stuff nerfed.
No, that's not what I'm even trying to do. All right, what about this then? What about this one? If you have Noggenfogger Elixir, you can actually, and you walk up to this specific point in the Mist of Tyranid Scythe wall before the first two mobs you fight, you can actually just like tag the mob. How's that?
That's a classic.
Okay.
Is that better?
That's a classic.
But you're also trying to get that fixed.
I'm not trying to get that fixed.
No.
I think that's good. I wish that DK could continue to pull through the walls of the Mist of Tyranid Scythe maze. I thought it was annoying that they fixed it.
And just show the images on each pedestal always, and then allow you to open the doors in combat.
You're preaching to me. Like, I'm all in on that.
All right, well, since Blizzard devs are listening, I have a very great comment about my weekly thing as well. So, if anyone felt this way gearing, it felt so annoying to get like random armor pieces. Like I would just never been able to find wrists or belts or whatever, and it would just every single dungeon would just be weapons, trinkets, or whatever. And I had this suspicion that somehow Blizzard had made some sort of error or like messed up loot tables or somehow. And I saw a post on Reddit. And this post actually confirmed that they are messing up loot tables. So the last boss of Stone Vault, if you are doing that like on a normal or heroic or whatever, where each boss has loot and you're a survival hunter, there's not actually an item on the loot table. That's how few armor pieces are on the loot table now, is if you do the last boss in Survival Hunter loot spec, there are no items on the loot table. And as far as I know, this is the only boss that they've ever made in a dungeon where you just don't have an item on the loot table.
How does that even happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was funny as hell.
Huh. That's so but just put like a helmet on it or something.
I genuinely had this conspiracy theory that they wanted everyone to get weapons and trinkets, and they saw that people were complaining that they don't have those, which was silly because everyone crafts weapons, so weapons are useless drops in dungeons for almost everybody, especially because they give you a free crest for doing nothing. And so everybody made a 619 weapon, even if it was a total rat character. And so yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just bugged, like it doesn't show it properly, but there are no items that you can get as a survival hunter on the last boss.
That's cool.
Very useful tip.
You have anything, Squishy?
Yeah, my last one, it's very simple. This next week with the patch is the 4th Catalyst charge. So any of your rat alts, or anything that you haven't stepped into Raid or Mythic Plus or gotten any tier on, you can now play with a 4th set just for fun and have fun with it. Because I think there are a lot of actually some really fun 4th sets out there, on like Havoc DH or Dev Evoker. Those are actually very fun to play with. And so something small there, but tons of fun.
Okay, let's move on to some questions and some answers. And so the first question, they say, I'm a certified goblin. Anything below 10s doesn't really interest me and is not fun for and my main source of enjoyment is Mythic Plus. I've pugged a title a couple of times and usually I'm within the 0.1 to 0.2%. So what are your guys' thoughts on adding more steps to the ladder of Mythic Plus? Maybe not big rewards, but just something that marks your actual spot on the leaderboards. Not that I want Mythic Plus to become exactly like PvP, but I want something similar to Gladiator. From my understanding, there's a lot more Gladiators than there are 0.1% players, and 0.1% is more similar to rank 1 Gladiators in PvP.
So one thing I always really liked that when I first started, and I see it a lot from people who are getting into Mythic Plus as well, is the Raider IO breakdowns for your ranking. So like, you know, you can see your, oh, I'm number 1 healer in the world, right? But most people are number 5, whatever. But you can see who's the number 1 healer on your server, who's the number 1 enhancement shaman on your server. And I feel like it gives you cool little breakpoints to kind of reach. And like, you know, for a super high level Aug Evoker like Tettles, you know, he's looking at his world ranking. But for someone who's like, you know, on some random server, like it's cool to work your way up and be, you know, to have something to say about like, you know, what you've accomplished and to like see your rank go up, even though, yeah, there might not be that many people competing for that. But I feel like it's a cool way to highlight specific specs or specific like server pride or whatever. Not that that matters, but I mean, it's just fun, right? So I think doing little things like that, where like you might, you know, having a title or just something to give to people if you're like the number 1, you know, or you're in the top X of a certain spec or the top X of your server, I think would be really, really cool. I think that would be like a fun goal that that people could shoot for, especially if they're on some dead server and they're bored, but they're like, oh, you know, I could be the number 1 guy. I mean, I think everyone for always has asked Blizzard to do more rewards and like have things for people to do Mythic Plus. And so, I mean, I'm never going to say no to adding more steps and more rewards. I do think the key squish kind of made things a little bit weird. I think there's a lot of people still that are sort of stuck at 11s that don't really want to pug 12s. But again, maybe that could be a gear thing, right? Like once everybody's 635, maybe pugging 12s will be a bit more reasonable.
Do we think that this current system, if they continued on in the future, would be problematic, or do we think that it's something that Blizzard should at least try to address?
I think that something for all 12s would be cool. I think something to give people an incentive to jump that gap or whatever. To be honest, it kind of feels like it should be portals. Like having portals at 10s now feels a little weird because like that's the max item reward too, right? Like you don't even even goes for portals anymore. Like that's not even a thing you do. Like I know people are going to get mad by this, but I think if they don't do anything, I think moving portals to 12s would be kind of cool because like you're doing 10s for rewards, and then like, you know, if you've got a portal, you've done a 12, like that's a big accomplishment, you know? And while it seems very hard for people now, I think, you know, in 10 item levels, you guys might see it a little bit differently. And I think a lot of people might feel like there's not enough to do there. So I think either portals or something else of like, you know, it'd be kind of funny, like a title like, you know, oh, you defeated Xal'atath or whatever, like Xal'atath's Conqueror for doing all the 12s or whatever, I think would be kind of cool.
I think I have the perfect thing for 12s. First of all, I love portals for 10s because I'm a scrub.
My bad. I'm sorry. I'm
No. It's fine.
I'm losing
I
points.
love teleport to the dungeon, but 12s, all right? You know, you're Raider, you have mounts, you have cool transmog. PvP, you have mounts, you have a cool transmog. Mythic Plus, you have mounts. So I think that 12 aspect, you get a cool recolor of the seasonal transmog.
Ooh, I like that. A special transmog for all time.
Because you know, some of those elite transmogs for PvP look sick.
Don't you get a special transmog for getting Keystone Hero or Master or whatever?
I don't think so.
I thought I remember when you get the achievement and then you get the curio item or whatever. Don't you get something that you use and it gives you a mog or something?
Yes.
I mean, I didn't even read it, but
that takes so that started in Dragonflight when you get the 2500 for Mythic Plus or Mythic Queen Ansarek, comparable difficulty by the way. You get an item that you turn in. It makes your tier set shoulders. And usually the helm like have a glow up essentially.
Oh,
like,
but it's the same for every single thing.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the same for raid and everything. Okay, got it. And that's not the same. Yeah.
So I would love to see a recolor of the tier set for Mythic Plus specifically. Then if somebody has, you know, raid has the 4 colors, that's fine. PvP has their 1 color, which is fine. Mythic Plus having that 1 color, and you can kind of like, if you really like a season of, you know, the PvP, you push that PvP season. I've seen people do it. If you really like the Mythic Plus season, maybe you push that Mythic Plus season. Okay. And that's how Tettles gets me to tank again for him or something. But
log in.
I think that would be really sick, to be honest.
Okay. What was the next question? Oh, yes. So we had a lot of comments, and this is the one that I brought up. So whenever we were talking about, like last week, I think Growl brought up the question, like, what can we do to try to help, right, for the community? Somebody tweeted us saying that 0 to hero style of coaching that you guys mentioned actually sounds pretty awesome. Obviously, it'd probably depend on the group you're coaching, but the idea sounds like it would be fun. Has anybody iterated or thought on this idea some more? I read a decent amount of comments that were talking about it, but I don't think anybody like really went like super in depth in the comments for like what would be like a great idea.
Man, it's so hard because I'm just playing the game so much and I don't have time for this. But this would be so cool.
Yeah,
like I feel like there's so many good. Like okay, so
are you doing the TGP? We can do this like post MDI if you're not doing the TGP.
I mean, I don't even know what I'm gonna be doing tomorrow. Like my head's that far ahead. No. Don't even do that to my brain. Don't even do that to my brain. I'm just still worried about Silken Court. So actually, a few people like have reached out to me that I know that also listen to the pod. One of which is he's a friend who I used to play poker with, who plays with his like either cousin or brother or somebody, and they're both like hard stuck 11s, and they have like a small kind of group that they pug around with, and they're trying to break into 12s. And he's playing Resto Druid actually, so he's not playing Shaman.
Okay.
And he like records his stream and like does stuff and is like very, very intelligent. And I thought that would be a very, very interesting like sort of coach duo sort of thing to see. I've had someone reach out to me who was a healer who's like hard stuck every time. I mean, I'm sure you have people in your chat that are like this too, all time 11s, can't break into 12s.
Yep.
I feel like grabbing people that are in that spot and then getting them together and then making a group with them would be so freaking good, but I just don't have the time to do it. Like I think if we could just like even not even like making a bunch of content or a series about it. All right, I'm just gonna throw the ball in your court because you actually do YouTube stuff. This is look, this is what you got to do. Okay, you got to put together 5 people who have timed 11s, and then you got to put them together. All people who are like, I can't get into 12s, I can't find a group, and then we just like you record and we just like coach them and then help them out with keys and we stick them together and then see how they do. And then you can just put it all on your YouTube channel and like do it, and I'll show up and like help. But I can't like schedule or make time or use a brain. But I feel like that's what it has to be, right? Like it has to be a bunch of people who can't find groups, who are stuck at 11s, and then get them together and then get them some 12s timed. I feel like that would be kind of sick.
Is this The Voice?
The Voice, like the TV show?
Yeah. Okay, never mind.
I don't know pop culture.
I don't watch The Voice.
Wrong crowd.
No,
dude, I play video games. Like, I don't know The Voice. Isn't that like the American Idol spinoff? Like, I don't really know.
Wait, America's best undiscovered talent goes head to head. Teams led by 4 of today's biggest musical icons. Okay,
yeah,
now I got it. Okay, makes sense.
They have teams.
No, yeah, but that would be like a competition. I don't think I know a lot of people suggested like, oh, put together 7 teams that are like, you know, everyone has a team. No, I just feel like just one group of people coached by like, you know, whoever is around, right? Like me or you or like, you know, Frodo being there on their tank or whatever for just like a couple times. Like I swear that if you take 5 people who are hard stuck at 11s and can't find friends and you just force them to play together, even with no good advice, I bet they'll start timing 12s and getting better. You know what I'm saying? Like if you literally just lock them together and put them in a room and make them do keys, I'm pretty sure they're going to get way better.
All right, I'll have to cook on this some. I feel like the finding the people part would actually probably be the hardest part for me, right? To find 5 people that would want to play together like that.
I think what you do is and this is kind of us just theory crafting. This isn't really anything podcast related, but
yeah, this is absolutely nothing.
I think what you do is you make a Google form and you leave some open-ended questions and you kind of like flesh out how intelligent they are. Not intelligent, but like, you know, all right, that was a bad word. How well spoken they are and how well they can communicate their thoughts, because you want to use it. Okay, no dumb people. Fine. Grawl doesn't like dumb people. There you go. I said it. If I'm making a video and I want people to progress, you know, do well, and I want people to succeed, and I want people to be on, you know, I don't want them to be dumb.
Well, you also need them to be able to articulate the problems that they're having, or at least
that's what I meant. I meant articulate and can explain things and can be on a video and like people can actually want to watch them. You know.
Yeah, you're making a casting call. You want to pick the right people.
Yeah, exactly.
Dedicated stuff like that. I totally.
All right, is that the name of the episode? Grawl hates dumb people.
No, that's not the name.
That would be so bad.
Somebody came up with the name of the episode already. I remember what it was.
I like how I've already got in your head that anytime you say something dumb, I'm just going to suggest it as the episode title.
Okay. This wasn't submitted for Q&A, but this is the last question that I think I wanted to bring up for Q&A.
Yeah.
So it's a Reddit post. It says, does anyone wish they had some form of more difficult dungeons, but they weren't timed like Mythic Plus? I love the idea of difficult 5-mans, but I truly cannot stand the idea of it all being timed. I get why others like it, But that's just not how I enjoy playing. And it kind of frustrates me that the only route for playing difficult 5-mans is them being timed. I get that it's not likely to happen. I'm just ranting. Squishy, were 5-mans ever actually difficult prior to Mythic Plus?
Yes and no. I mean, partially because the player base wasn't as optimized as they were. But also, I think, once upon a time, I think dungeons were more like 5-man raids.
Okay.
And so I think that is like what, because we know for a fact that the timer has an impact on a lot of people psychologically.
Of
right?
course.
Whether it exists or it's relevant, it could be a 3-hour timer and the thing could be done in 10 minutes and it will still affect them. And I struggle, like, I think what they're almost asking for is like 5-man raid content.
Okay.
Which is like what the mega dungeons have been, especially Dawn of the Infinites, which I think is completely fair. I think there's an avenue for hard, non-timed, small group content, and I think that's completely fair. I hope they do another mega dungeon.
Do the mega dungeons not satiate this enough though? Like I feel like maybe they should.
They do, but think about it. We get one mega dungeon.
Yeah. What about the current game?
An
Right
expansion.
Now?
We get 3 to 4 seasons in expansion, so they get 1 per expansion.
I guess that's. I guess if they don't have any interest in doing Mythic Plus, maybe. Okay, sure.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Okay.
Have +8 difficulty, but it's the same difficulty as +8s, but it has no timer and no affixes, and it drops Gilded Crest.
Shut up.
I'm trying to get some points back.
Yeah, dude, the fact that I knew it was a meme whenever he goes, yeah, it drops Gilded Crest. I was like listening, I was trying to figure out like where he was going with this.
It's real.
and then I realized he's just like shit talking the moles whenever he goes, and it drops Gilded Crest. Oh my God.
No, it's real. No, +8 difficulty. It allows you to see what it's like to be in a high key. Let's say you're somebody who, everyone's complaining about all these people that geared up and they got all this gear from Delves and from Raid, and now they're going into M+ and they're clowning because they don't know the dungeons. Give them an M0 untimed that rewards, hero track gear and Gilded Crest, but it's +8 difficulty. It's hard.
Okay. To cook on that maybe a little more, I think there's an avenue where you can have, like, maybe there is a mode where you have a +8 untimed, and for their first completion a week, it acts as a regular Mythic Plus or something like that. I think there's an avenue for something like that for the game. I don't think.
Oh yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that because it's 1 per week, right? So maybe
I mean, it can be.
Yeah, so then you can limit the. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I think
M0s are daily now, aren't they?
Yeah, but M0s also are a meme for rewards. Like, they give you nothing. So basically, what they tried to accomplish this, right? When they made the difficulty of M0 up, they tried to accomplish this. And the thing is, for some demographic of the player base, they did accomplish this, right? Like, for a more casual, like, not so serious person who's not really, like, putting a lot of time into gear, they did accomplish this. Making a more challenging, like, M0 thing. So the question is, did they hit the mark there? Like, are enough people satisfied with M0, or do we need another difficulty of I mean, personally, I think I love the idea of difficult untimed stuff. Not that I would really do it, but like, I like dungeon content, and I don't want, if people want to do that without a timer, I don't see why.
So I think that this wouldn't. I think that the current system that we have is pretty good. I think that, like, if they have infinite amounts of time and this doesn't cost any development resources, sure, like, this would probably be a good thing to change, or a good addition to add. But like, in general, I don't think that they shouldn't need to feel like they need to pivot to this, right?
It's hard because the timer in dungeons is the only thing that kind of tests DPS, unless you in this untimed version you add and rage timers to bosses or trash, but that's just really weird. And
I think as a healer or a tank, that's not true. I think if, like, you just die to these bosses, like, if you're doing the second boss of Dawnbreaker and you're doing beans damage, like, your tank, or if your tank or healer is equally skilled, they're dead. Like, yeah, okay, if I walk in on my 630 Disc Priest, I'll be able to heal that boss forever, but an average, whatever level Disc Priest that's doing this, like, they're just gonna die. Like, the people are gonna run out of mana. Like, I think I don't necessarily think having a timer there. I don't think the timer has to be there.
Well, it would be the bench without one live patch update.
This is so ridiculous.
Were updated again. This time with a developer note to Poison Cleansing Totem. Our wish has been fulfilled.
Okay.
So I sent that to you. If you want to just grab that real quick.
Our what? They're not changing anything, right?
No, they're just explaining why they did it. Similar to changes we made to Mass Dispel and Dragonflight, the availability of Poison Cleansing Totem is allowing shamans to trivialize dungeon mechanics where poison debuffs are spread to the group. We're increasing its cooldown to reduce its frequency while keeping its potency the same, so it still shines when used.
I just think why is it Mass Dispel for poisons? I guess is maybe my bigger question. Like, why does it remove all 5 poisons over the 9 seconds? Why doesn't it just remove 2 poisons or something like that, and then keep it a 45-second CD?
Because they still want to keep its potency so that it shines when used.
But okay, shut up. But it's more just like that was obviously the OP part, is that it was basically Mass Dispel for poisons. Also, again, poisons in my opinion are just hitting way too hard.
But yeah, we asked for a dev note. Quick update there. There's also some minor other changes. Lay on Hands used to grant 100% increased armor for a very long time. I don't remember what it originally was. This was a problem because armor is a DPS buffs for warriors. And so every paladin would use Lay on Hands as a DPS buff for warriors by just Lay on Hands them and giving them the armor buff. So now the armor buff only lasts 8 seconds.
Wait, DPS warriors are not prot warrior, right?
DPS warriors, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they get strength from armor or something like that. So that's where this came from.
Love when my Lay on Hands is a DPS cooldown.
Said literally nobody ever.
Bro, the real hack is, Skarmorak, the boss that has the orbs that increase your healing.
Yeah.
You have the Paladin Blessing that turns your healing into damage, and then you just grab every orb that increases your healing by 800%, and then just spam heals as a Paladin.
That goes hard. All right. Any final thoughts before we head on out?
I feel bad for everybody waiting in maintenance. Almost as bad as I feel for myself waiting for Silken Court. But I do have dinner that I'm about to grab, so we have that.
And a bottle of wine.
Good night, everybody. Good luck to Growl for Silken Court tonight.
No.
Bye.
Bye.